punishment.
That's kind of what that sounds like.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Northside Board of Trustees. Before calling this meeting to order, the board would like to take just a moment to briefly review some of the rules for conducting our meeting. And I want to let you all know that Ms. Reed is actually in Spain right now, and so that's why, as vice president, I'm running the meeting. And we just couldn't convince her that she needed to be here. The order of business for this meeting is set out in the agenda. One item that you may notice on the agenda is the consent agenda. This item includes items that are considered routine and are of a recurring nature. All the items listed on the consent agenda will be acted upon in one motion. If there is a consent agenda item which anyone here would like to address, please speak up. Please sign up to speak to that item, and we will pull it from the consent motion and discuss it separately. The purpose of our meeting is to conduct board business, and for that reason it is held in public. It is not a public forum, however, we do provide the opportunity for audience participation. If there is anyone who would like to address the board during an agenda item or citizens to be heard portion of the agenda, we ask that you please complete a sign-up sheet located at the entrance to this room. This is so we do not overlook anyone who would like to speak to the board. We will review the rules for addressing the board later in the meeting. Is there anyone here who would like to sign up to an agenda item and has not done so? And Mr. Gonzalez, since this isn't an agenda item, it'll be under citizens to be heard. Okay? All right. Then the meeting will then officially be called to order. Please stand as Trustee Gerald Lopez leads us in the invocation and pledges his pledges of allegiance. Hey, Dr. Hurl.
Almighty and merciful God, we ask your guidance and blessings upon this board, students, parents, patrons, teachers, and administrators. As we are assembled here this evening in the common pursuit of this great nation's wealth, our children. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Okay, the meeting's been called to order. We've had our invocation. There are no public hearings at this time. Dr. Woods, the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Turn that on. Thank you. Several items to report to the board tonight. A lot of great things have gone on just in the time since we last met, and I know spring break intervened in some of that time. We've had two very successful Go Public events recently. One was a fundraiser held at the Joris Complex, a really nice event, well attended, and raised money for a good cause. And then I'll just say briefly and thank Mr. Blunt, Heroes for Health came off incredibly well. The reports that I have from inside of Northside and from other districts as well are so positive. And I know that, as you all know, as the board knows, in his normal fashion, Bobby's already planning for next year. So thanks to Mr. Blunt. And it is not hyperbole to say that he is absolutely the Bexar County coordinator of that event. So thanks to him. He and I got to be together at an event that morning, and really enjoyable. I also want to thank everybody who participated, schools, and especially the folks in our fine arts department for just a fantastic Los Leones celebration. That event got moved to Marshall High School. We had record attendance this year. It was very, very comfortable on the site there at Marshall, and I think folks from the city of Leon Valley as well as all of our schools were really, really pleased. So thanks to all for that. Also want to thank a number of our librarians who have for now 5 years organized an event in the spring called Library Palooza, which is really targets teen readers. And it has steadily grown through the years, and I know that several of us were there that Saturday morning. And imagine a Saturday morning, a 1,000-seat auditorium at a high school, and they've got to open 3 or 4 additional breakout rooms to telecast into because the auditorium won't hold all the kids. It's really really fantastic. So thanks to that group as well. Thanks to the members of our board for your support in Educator of the Year. I think we all agree that's one of the highlights from an event perspective for the year. And I want to thank the folks in our grants department and certainly Pasquale and his people in communications for putting on a great ceremony there. Board members will remember that this year we added a relatively small amount of money to really beef up robotics in our elementary schools this year. And the regional competition was held at the first weekend of spring break. We had a number of schools who qualified for the region, and we've got at least one school that's qualified for national competition now in robotics. So that was a neat event as well. And I guess my last thanks will be to Mr. Rastellini and his staff for a really successful refunding right before spring break. They refunded a fairly significant amount of previously issued bonds. Interest cost is under 3%, and the net present value savings to the district, $16.7 million. So pretty successful. So thanks to those folks, and really proud of that. And while I know it's already, we just came back from spring break, we're going to be closed on Friday. Good Friday is this Friday, and so schools and departments will be closed. And happy Easter to all of you in the audience and on the dais. Happy Easter to you all. So tonight we have not one but two video moments. So Pasquale and I just couldn't choose, so we decided to show them both. So you know that Northside is well known for community involvement, for school leadership, and for excellence in our classrooms. And so tonight we will highlight that in these two pieces.
Northside led the way in the county-wide public school initiative, Heroes for Health, promoting nutrition and exercise in all 75 elementary schools. This initiative is part of the Go Public campaign involving 300 Bexar County elementary schools. It was a superhero's welcome for students at Carson Elementary as they gathered for a rally to promote a healthy lifestyle. They were greeted by real-life heroes, police officers, and firefighters who live a healthy lifestyle. Their message, eat nutritious foods and stay active. Several community leaders, including the San Antonio Mayor, Ivy Taylor, also shared a Heroes for Health message.
I think this is an amazing event, opportunity for our kids to think about the meaning of being healthy and the impact that it has on their lives. You know, the police and firefighters coming out, and that's a job that all the kids can relate to, and for them to convey that message that they have to be healthy in order to be able to do their jobs is something that I think will resonate with the kids.
Ready, go!
This was demonstrated when two children geared up in firefighter uniforms as they led several hundred children to exercise. Superintendent Dr. Brian Woods and NISD school board member Bobby Blunt got in on the action with jumping jacks, reminding everyone that a healthy lifestyle includes students, teachers, parents, and all adults.
For us to be successful, we know we can't do it alone, that it takes the whole community to be involved, and it shows that our community can step up when we need to.
The Heroes for Health initiative is organized by the Bexar County School Boards Coalition as part of the Go Public campaign to support public education.
The critical thing is to tell students that it starts early on. At their age, if they can learn good eating habits, if they can learn it's important to exercise, that they're going to be successful at whatever they're going to do today as well as in the future.
The children are listening and learning by example.
Stay healthy if you want to be successful in life. I personally like to go and play basketball. And I also like to sometimes go to the park or ride a bike outside.
Learning about the benefits of eating healthy and staying active are fine examples of more choices and more opportunities in our public schools. We are over the top Northside proud when it comes to our educators. 3 NISD teachers and 1 principal were named finalists in the statewide 2016 HEB Excellence in Education Awards. Of the 8 area awards, 4 are from Northside. The awards recognize excellence in Texas public education. An entourage of Northside officials, HEB representatives, and camera crews surprised 3 teachers and 1 principal at their respective schools as they announced the finalists for the HEB Excellence in Education Award.
We're almost done. What's going on? What's happening?
We're here for a little bit of a special presentation. I want to introduce Kim, who's down
Shocked is an understatement for Steuben Elementary first grade teacher Melinda Valdez. HEB awarded her a check for $1,000. She also received $1,000 in grant money for Steuben Elementary. Mrs. Valdez is a finalist in the Leadership Elementary category. It's for teachers with 10 to 20 years of classroom experience.
Mrs. Wallace is an HEB Excellence in Education finalist.
The Traveling Surprise Patrol also paid a visit to Ward Elementary first grade teacher Cynthia Wallace. Mrs. Wallace is a finalist for the Lifetime Achievement Elementary Award for teachers with more than 20 years of experience. She was awarded $1,000 for herself and $1,000 for her school.
This means the world to me because I truly love my job. My job is my life. As you know, I've been going through cancer the last couple of years, and I was my husband asked me to take a break and take some time off, and I said I can't. This is what makes my day. This is what keeps me going.
Or Memphis, or Tennessee.
HEB recognizes teachers with less than 10 years experience with the Rising Star Award. Colonies North 4th and 5th grade teacher Sarah Aguida received the exciting news in her newcomers classroom. She teaches refugee children who are new to this country and some who are attending school for the very first time.
We work really hard, and we always say when we're burned out that it's for our kids. I have the best class. They come to school every day. They want to be here, they want to learn, and they work so hard to try to catch up with our peers. And I'm just lucky to be with them.
A gym full of students at Driggers Elementary was in on the surprise announcement for their principal, Mary Helen Cover. She was selected as a state finalist in the HEB Excellence Principal Elementary category. Mrs. Cover received a $1,000 check for herself and $2,500 for her school. NISD Superintendent Dr. Brian Wood says these awards are so special, but having 4 finalists at one time is a huge recognition of the caliber of staff in Northside ISD.
These are every story is just phenomenal. These are such incredible people, and it's just such, my heart is just full watching them be honored.
The NISD educators are among 40 finalists statewide. These 4 special educators and thousands more at Northside are what makes Northside proud.
Really good.
That was wonderful.
So Pasquale and I are always thinking about things to say, and one of the things I told him was, hey, 10% of the HEB nominees from the state are from Northside. There's a tagline for you right there. Just one quick story before I have one more item, Ms. Chumley. There was a picture at the Heroes for Health event that Mr. Blunt and I were at, and there's this lineup of police officers standing behind us, and Bobby and I are engaged in the jumping jacks, and they snap a picture, probably Monica, when our hands are up like this and all the police officers are standing behind us. I said, yeah, let's not put that on the website. So one more item before we wrap up, and I'll ask Aquatics Director Scott Zielinski to come forward and make a presentation. As members of the board know, come on up, Scott. As members of the board know, we hosted a number of high-profile events at the Northside Swim Center last summer. And Mr. Zielinski has a presentation to make related to that.
Yes. Ms. Chumley, members of the board, Dr. Woods, and cabinet, 3.5 years ago we said build it and they will come. Well, they certainly came this past year.
Thank you.
The Swim Center has been a star attraction in the United States ever since the renderings were made public of the Swim Center. Even before we officially opened the facility, we had national governing bodies of aquatic sports contacting us regularly to inquire about Northside hosting a particular competition for them. Our dream was someday to host a national championship at our facility, where we could showcase Northside's commitment to enrichment activities for our children and community. Little did we know the dream came true faster than expected and really challenged our aquatics team to raise the performance bar. The Northside Swim Center is a first-class facility. So again, I will thank Dr. Folks and Abstentia for his vision, Dr. Woods, Stan Lang, and of course our school board for supporting the vision for our future of Northside. So as you know, 2015 was coined the Year of Swimming in San Antonio. We received bids to host the U.S. Masters National Championship, USA Swimming 18 and Under Junior National Championships, the USA Swimming National Championships, where we're blessed with Michael Phelps. That drew quite a crowd. And then we finished off the summer with the World Deaf Swimming Championships, where we had athletes from 21 countries from around the world. Northside has never held a national championship in any discipline, if my memory serves me correctly. So we were honored to be able to do that. We teach children in Northside in schools and provide enrichment activities all year long. On our campus, all I can tell you is that the spring and summer of 2015 was quite a year. I also have to tell you I couldn't be more proud of my staff for the exemplary planning and implementation that transpired. We are Northside proud, and I can tell you that from the CEO of USA Swimming to coaches and swimmers from around the world, we ran first-class competitions. In fact, the CEO of USA Swimming told me when I was giving him a private tour that we could host the Olympic trials here in Northside. What a compliment to all of you for the support that you've provided. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you Kristen Libardoni. She is one of my aquatics coordinators, and she also carries the title of Special Events Coordinator. And her efforts for planning and implementation were witnessed around the world as we were seen on national television and we were streamed worldwide. And she wants to share a few facts with you, and then we've got a presentation we'd like to share with you as a memento for the Year of Swimming in San Antonio. Great. Kristen?
Okay, I'm so grateful to be a part of this team. It's so wonderful to stand before you. It was so exciting. So first, just thank you. I'm proud to present with you the annual summary. That's something that we do in our obligations to Bexar County. So we put that together, and Bexar County came to visit and checked it all out, and they liked what we had to say. Just a quick summarize of the tabs that you see. Last year we hosted 2 multi-state championships, 3 national championships, and 1 world championship. We hosted over 5,000 competitors and over 33,000 spectators. So this means that just under 40,000 people got to experience the NISD Swim Center and the Northside Way of Excellence. Our ratings for the national championship outdid all the ratings from anything that was being aired from the world championships in Kazan at the very same time. With all that excitement, we are humbled to announce that the economic impact of these events brought in over $15 million to Bexar County and the San Antonio area, showing that we are just a small piece to the bigger puzzle. Although we were not offered the Olympic trial bid, we partnered with the San Antonio Sports and also the City of San Antonio to develop a legacy program called Viva Swim. You'll find that tab in your summary as well. And because of that team effort, more than 8,704 more people, mainly children, took swim lessons in 2015 than they did in 2014. This is a 34% increase in a community impact that I think we can all be proud of. Having summarized the epic year in swim, we are lucky to have this experience, and I must say that I'm very proud and thankful to be a part of this team, and we are Northside proud. And to show it, we had the medals and some memory pieces put together for
That's cool.
The new, maybe here in central office, maybe the new facility, but I can explain it a little bit.
Oh, that's neat.
These three come from the backstroke flags from the national championships. We have the juniors and the seniors. These are the World Deaf Championship medals, and these ones are from the Masters meet. So there's your summer of swim.
Beautiful.
And thank you for letting us have the opportunity to be a part of it.
Very nice. Thank
Very
you all.
nice. Thank
Beautiful.
you.
We will have to find a special place for that. That's really neat. Thank
That
you all
is
for doing
really
that.
nice.
Thank you very much. And Mrs. Chumley, I think that officially concludes the superintendent's report.
All right. It's time for board members' reports. Do I have any trustees? I don't know. Dr. Hall wanted to know what happened to the posters that were on our.
Oh, we thought it was cluttered, so we dispersed them.
I move that to that side, and that can go right there. Decorating for you, Brian.
Well, I'm glad that we're doing that.
Ms. Freeman.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley.
Thank you. To the board, Dr. Mary Ussery, who is principal of Steuben Elementary School, she also is a professor at UTSA and teaches a class in school and community relations. And she invited me to speak with her class on the board's role and in community and school involvement. And so I had the pleasure of speaking with them. They had very, very good questions. Interesting perspective, because her classroom is composed of students from all over San Antonio, so they each had their own perspective on school boards and what school boards do. So I really appreciated that opportunity and learned a lot from that as well. And to Bobby, I got to go to Helotes Elementary School, Heroes for Health Day, and it was a win-win on both sides. From my perspective, the Helotes Fire Department was there leading the entire school in their gym with exercises and talking to them about good nutrition. The kids were really responsive, and I thought it was great for everybody. So thank you for coordinating all of that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Hartle.
Thank you. One of these days I'll figure this out. I did want to say when we were watching the HEB Awards, that could be a TV show. I mean, it is so incredible what happens with the teachers and the kids when H.E. Betty comes in and the balloons and everything, but it's so deserving of our teachers and our principal to have half of the awardees coming from Northside, just as extremely Northside proud moment. But one thing that was shared with me was how Northside rolls out the red carpet. The superintendent comes, central office staff, additional campus personnel. It is a huge event, and Northside makes it so. That's not true in other districts. And so actually several that did not have superintendents attend. And so we do make it special because we're so proud, but you saw the faces of the kids, and it's all about them delighting in other people's successes and each other. So that was wonderful. The other thing, I know Dr. Woods was saying Happy Easter, and what I just wanted to add, and kids rest up because the week they come back is testing, and we have third grade and fourth grade and seventh grade and eighth grade, and we have our high school kids taking English 1 and 2, and it's a full week. And I know just in school visits and talking to our teachers that it's like, bring the test on, we're ready, no problem at all. We've taught them well, and now it's their turn to show what they know, and they're confident. And again, as a board, that makes us very proud. So thanks for our teachers and our staff for getting our kids ready, but families and students, just show up and show what you know. Thank you.
Mr. Blunt.
Yeah, the proper thanks really for Heroes for Health goes to our San Antonio Police Department, our Fire Department, our sheriff and also the military organizations for being involved and for really stepping up and participating. But more than anything else, we really got to thank the campus leaders and also the PE, because when you tell them, hey, you're going to have this person you don't know, or a couple of them, show up at your campus, pull all your kids out, and take a chance on them, I got to be careful how I say this, talking and relating with the kids, and they prepare them so well. I mean, they make sure they're prepared, that they're comfortable and everything else, and that's what really makes the event successful. So I really think the thanks go to them more than anybody else. Another item is I went to the Texas Black Caucus School Board Member Summit. And matter of fact, that's going to be 2 of our award recipients, so I want to steal their thunder. We're really honored to see Northside get 2 awards, which is very, very unusual, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But there was something unusual or different that was actually done at the summit, and a lot of people took interest in it. We sort of did a segment with some educators that came in also. It just happened to be that the black school educators were also in Dallas, so they came over, and we did a joint superintendent/trustee session to talk about board superintendent type relationships, micromanagement, vision, et cetera. But the thing we did that was unusual is we actually had the superintendent set this up. They actually brought a person in like they were being interviewed by a board on what their perspective was, how they give their leadership. And at the end of it, they asked some pretty hard questions. The board members that were in attendance, they responded to say, this is what I heard, this is how I see things as a trustee, this is a little bit different. So the interaction between the two was very fascinating, and like I said, a lot took interest in trying to do something in that particular format. So it was a really good conference. The third one that I had to update the board on the Go Public side, you may have noticed the banner at the end, and hopefully everybody knows this, now we're saying San Antonio area, because we realize some of our participants, even ourselves, go beyond Bexar County. Our district does, University of Short Cibolo, when they came on board. So it's really the San Antonio area that now we're emphasizing as sort of the tagline. And I think, Dr. Woods, we can say this, we're going to have a new member coming on board. Sandy Hugh and I from Northeast ISD went out and talked to their board, and their superintendent was very supportive. I know Dr. Woods and others talked to the superintendent individually too. But Floresville will also be joining the Go Public campaign. So it continues to grow in its popularity. And then the last one I'll bring up is it is so great to see the success that the Swim Center is definitely have. You know, back in, I'm going way back now, when the Pan Am Games was being talked about in San Antonio in 2007, that whole area where the Swim Center, where our whole complex is, everybody was hoping that would be a world-class complex for San Antonio, and that would be associated with the Pan Am Games and some other things. To see that actually achieved because of the Swim Center, it's really fascinating. So I go back to that memory, and it's really great to see, and thanks for the presentation. And that's all I had.
Okay. Gerald, I know you've pressed your button, but
Yeah, right,
Carol's
did I?
coming up twice.
Oh, okay.
So, in fact, Carol's coming about 4 times.
Well,
So
I'll go ahead.
So
yeah.
if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I
Joseph,
just
you're
wanted to say
next.
I had a chance to attend a couple of the events throughout the past month, and one of the events that I did attend, and it was just a surprise for me, but it was a Habitat for Humanity event, and we were sponsoring it. Our city council district office was a part of that, but it was a surprise to me to see that we had some students from the Construction Careers High School that were there helping build about 167 homes. I mean, it was just the first initial event that was going on, but it was really good to see them out there. I believe Mr. Chase was the teacher there. A lot of what they were doing, or what they didn't realize that they were doing, was they were basically helping, first-time families become homeowners. I mean, first-time homeowners with families that had children. So it was a very good thing to see them being out there, being a part of the community and building home ownership for families. And basically they were giving kids like themselves a chance to be homeowners. To live in a home. I think a lot of what has come out with the home ownership is civically, children that grow up in homes, they become more responsible. They become more engaged in the community. There are some studies that show that some kids that grow up in homes, become homeowners themselves. So there's a lot of good things that came out of that, and I was glad to see that the Warren High School was able to participate in that. I mean, construction careers. Another one that I took part in was the Library Palooza. That was very good. I got to see a bunch of the children there, seeing the different authors that they read, and got to be a part of some of the events that took place there. I was really impressed with some of the children and the questions that they had. I mean, being my first time, they were these were very good questions that they had. But I also wanted to just kind of plug in for Library Palooza. You know, a lot of it, you know, we have, you know, these are Friends of Northside. It's run by donations, but I would like to say, hey, look, encourage people to be members of the organization. You can give $5 for an individual. Family, you can be $10, your contribution of $10, $50 for patrons, and I believe $100 for patrons, and then lifetime member is $250. So I'd really like to promote that, because the things that they're doing is really good for Northside and the community. And finally, you know, the Los Leones was a good event. James Machoka did an excellent job along with his department. It was well run, and I had to be a judge for about, I think it was 10 of the grand prize winners, and it was tough. I'll tell you that it was very tough to pick those winners, but it was good. I like the art. We've got some very creative individuals out there, some kids, especially in middle school, but it was neat to see the elementary participate in it, so it was really good, and I really appreciated being a part of that. And Bobby, of course, the Heroes for Health, that was a great event. You did a great job, and thank you for your leadership on that, and that's pretty much it. That's all that I have.
Okay. Mr. Medina.
Thank you, Board. I just wanted to also add, recently, this month, many of our elementaries and middle schools participate in a competition, which is through Fine Arts, which is Destination Imagination, or they call it DI, in Bernie. And our teams represented our district very well. They compete against surrounding school districts, including Bernie and New Braunfels, and surrounding school districts within our county as well. Our middle schools are competing tomorrow, I believe, through UIL, orchestra, and strings, and I wanted to give them a warm wish of support. As well, our teachers, thank you for their hard work, and our students, their dedication, and hopefully they'll do a great job on their test next week. As well as those athletes that are participating in spring sports, our track and field, softball, baseball, and other sports. We also look forward, I have boys, and they participate in the Northside Aquatic swim, and they're starting, and they're looking forward to it. And thank you very much for your great job for 2015. We look forward to 2016 as well. That's pretty much, I want to wrap it up. Thanks.
Okay. Scott, I remember, for just some real quick building committee history, when we were building the swim center, we started out with the concept, and then we knew we wanted it to move to a world-class type of structure. The only problem was that our initial design wasn't quite at that point, so there was a lot of change orders in there. And any of you have been in building committee meetings with change orders or scope changes in design, so it was a little challenging. And so finally, on the very last one, when we had ended up, really saying this was it, we had everything we wanted to do, I remember stopping Scott and saying, Scott, we are so over budget. Promise me that you are going to make this work. Promise me that we will have all of these events that we are talking about will come because of the changes that we made in the scope. Because we were really willing to do it, but I was getting a little concerned. And you did exactly what you said you would do, because you made that promise then that if we built this, that they would come. And I just want to thank you, because it's been your leadership all along throughout all of that process with building that facility that really has gotten us to where we are now. So thank you very much, and thank you very much for keeping that promise you made so long ago.
Thank you. And
as well.
Let everybody know, I forgot to mention this, we're hosting the USA Diving Synchronized National Championships, April 6th through 10. And then the Olympic swim team is coming here July 11th through the 21st to do their training camp in our facility prior to going to Rio. So
Wow, that's
a
awesome.
huge honor for San Antonio.
Oh, absolutely.
And they do plan on having a media/public day. I think it's going to be July 16th. We have more planning coming up in April with USA Swimming. So
That's wonderful. Well, thank you for everything that you have done to make that dream a reality. We appreciate it. I just have a couple of thank yous. Los Leones James, as always, does an amazing job. And this year, Elizabeth Sanchez Lopez, who is the other half of our board member, Mr. Lopez, actually was in charge of it. And I remember, because I've been involved with Los Leones for many years, thinking, oh my gosh, we're moving it to Marshall. And per Elizabeth, I was like, are you absolutely sure this is really, are we really needing to do this? Anyway, I've had to eat crow 2 or 3 times on this so far, because she absolutely was right. It was the best move, and I haven't talked to anyone, and I have a lot of seniors that I work with in my community, and they all loved it. And they're very involved, and they said that, why didn't we do that a long time ago? So just really very special thank yous to Elizabeth for all the hard work she did, and it actually just turned out wonderful. And now we have so much more room to expand. I have no idea what James is going to come up with next for us to do at that event. I want to thank Marion Hersham at Timberwild. She's a kindergarten teacher, and every year for the last 3 or 4, 5 years, I've had the opportunity, I'm invited to read to her class, and this year we were celebrating Dr. Seuss, and I'd forgotten just how much fun it is to be with little kids reading Go Dog Go and, those kinds of books. So I just wanted to do a shout out and thank her. And over spring break, Colton and I had the great opportunity to go to the NCAA tournament and watch our beloved Aggies play. I don't know about that other team in Texas.
I don't know.
Anyway, the reason I'm bringing that up, outside of it being wonderful, Carol, and the Aggies came back and made the greatest comeback in NCAA tournament history, but besides all of that, 2 rows behind me was Jim Miller. And he, and it was just amazing. He stopped Colton and said, young man, what is your name? Because he's known Colton since he was, like 10. Anyway, he asked me to please send the best wishes. And he said, I think I may have retired too early, but John just wouldn't stay. Anyway, he wanted to make sure and send all of his best wishes to the Northside family, because he really misses us. And he's doing very well. But he said he's got lots of memories, and his heart is still in Northside. So I just wanted to pass that on. Pasquale, I don't know how you will ever continue to do the things you do. However, I do want to tell you that I was on hold the other day, and I heard this message that said, while you're holding, listen to Northside, Fine Arts Orchestra. And so I called Brian. I said, well, who came up with that idea? That was really a good idea. I'm tired of, anyway, you did. So thank you very much for thinking about doing that. It's just another way to showcase our wonderful children. And, the Educator of the Year awards were just phenomenal. I mean, just great, great teachers. And I don't remember if we had them back when I was in high school, but I want to introduce who would have absolutely been my Educator of the Year nomination is Jane Garner, then at Marshall, but she's Jane Ivers now. She was my English teacher. And that was when, during adolescence, when you're just like, oh my gosh, you think I'm a wuss now, I was really a wuss then. And I remember one time I had a dysfunctional home. Anyway, I came to school and I was really upset at something my stepmother had said. And Jane told me, she said, sometimes people from the North just don't have the same kind of tact that the people in the South have. And, whether you agree or not, it was what a 14-year-old who was having problems needed. And I remember that, here 40 some odd years later, I remember that because that's what I needed. So you were an exceptional teacher, and thank you so much for what you did for me.
Although I don't think HEB was there, Jane. No, I was telling her, I said the same thing. You would have been the HEB award winner. And you were so wonderful to work with, too, in staff development. Awesome, awesome.
And then just one real quick thing just to tell you about our amazing children. My mentee at Business Careers High School wants to be a professional entertainer, and she's 14, and she's just as precious as can be. Her name is Chloe Delgado. Anyway, she was part of a group that was the front band before the entertainer comes on. She was part of a group that sang, that opened for Johnny Lee and Mickey Gilley at the Majestic Theater. And so I have her on video, so I'll show you guys later, because I just got to brag about her, because she's truly just this amazing girl. She sang Wasted Days and Wasted Night by Freddie Fender. She's 14. Anyway, just an example of we have just such amazing children. So anyway, I think that ends our reports. It is. And so the next thing is we get to have some recognitions. So I think the board comes down in front.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Folks and the audience. Mr. Blunt kind of talked about this already and stole my little thunder, but that's okay. That's okay. I have the great pleasure of introducing two outstanding educators, as Bobby said, who received special accolades recently at the Texas Caucus of Black School Board Members. They honor an Educator of the Year and an Administrator of the Year at their annual summit. This year, Northside swept both categories. And so first, I want to bring up Dana. Dana Gilbert Perry is the principal at Vail, and she was named Administrator of the Year. Dana began her career in Northside as a special education teacher at Rudder Middle School and has been an assistant principal at Vail, a vice principal at Peace Middle School, and is now the principal at Vail. In her letter of recommendation, the former principal, Erica Forster, wrote, quote, "When I think of Dana as an instructional leader, the first thing that comes to mind is always doing what's best interest of the child at all times and at all costs. She is a true example of a 21st century campus leader. She serves her campus with grace and is willing to do whatever it takes to assist others. She is a person who has a hard time taking credit for her actions and openly praises those around her and gives them credit for her accomplishments." And you have to know that when she got up to speak, I had the honor of going to see them get these awards. And she said, "I'm not very good at speaking in public." Oh my God, she was phenomenal, right, Bobby? So I want to congratulate her, and she and her husband and her two daughters were there, and so we're really proud of her. Thank you. Our next winner is Amber Darden. Amber, come up here. She's a teacher at Jones Middle School, and she was named the Educator of the Year. So every great teacher serves their students in ways that go far above and beyond their job description. Amber Darden, however, has done so in a way that fundamentally has shifted the teaching paradigm at Northside and particularly at Jones. 3 years ago, as you know, as a board, we discovered that 40% of the students coming into middle school had been held back at least 1 year. In order to address this issue, we developed a school within a school concept that addressed 6th and 7th grades into one intensive year of schooling and implemented at Jones. The resulting academy promised incredible results for students. Amber was a founding teacher of that academy, and her willingness and ability went way beyond the boundaries of her classroom. She understands the needs of her students, instructs them in ways that matches their learning style, and ensures mastery of educational learning standards. This became a key component of the program's success, and as you know, we replicated it at a couple of other campuses. Today, she works extended hours in order to support her students during her lunch hours, before and after school tutoring and has begun a Saturday support tutoring program. So it's no wonder that she was selected above all the other nominees for the Texas Educator of the Year, and it's my pleasure to present her for the board recognition. And she also did really well at telling about her background and why she became a teacher, because somebody believed in her. Thank you. I don't know if we have any family members here. We have Mr. Drum, the vice principal at Vail. Anybody else?
Dedicated vice principal.
A dedicated vice principal. Who's going to charge us for? He's going to be wanting overtime. So congratulations, ladies. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Okay, consent agenda. Okay, next item of business on the agenda is consent agenda. Does any trustee want to pull any of the items on the consent agenda for discussion? And do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. The next item of business on the agenda is citizens to be heard. And before we have citizens to be heard, I do need to read an announcement from the board. This is a time when we allow citizens to address the board. The citizens to be heard agenda item is not intended to be a forum for resolving disputes or charges against individual district employees or students. Such complaints or allegations should and will be routed to other channels for appropriate handling in accordance with the applicable board policies. If your topic involves a personnel matter or a student matter, or if you contend that your legal rights have been violated or board policy is not followed, we have specific procedures for these matters, and now is not the appropriate time to discuss such matters. As a result, if you sign up to speak or begin talking about one of these topics, you will be asked to stop speaking and are directed to the appropriate policy. We respectfully ask that you refrain from making personal attacks or rude or slanderous remarks. Speakers are asked to express themselves in a civil manner with due respect for the dignity and privacy of others who may be affected by your comments, and refrain from saying or doing anything to disrupt the meeting. We believe citizens to be heard is important and meaningful, and we will listen to what you have to say. We value your opinions, although we are restrained by law from taking any action. On a regular agenda item, which I don't think we have any citizens to address to that tonight.
No.
Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So, when the speaker's called, please use the podium, address your remarks to the board, confine your remarks to a Northside policy or practice, limit your remarks to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, the board secretary will hold up the yellow card. At 3 minutes, the board secretary will hold up the red card. We ask that you wrap up your remarks at that point. Again, please do not make personal attacks on individuals, and the audience should refrain from applause or any negative response. Thank you. And the first speaker is Charles Gonzalez.
Hello, everybody. My name is Charles Gonzalez, and I think it was on the agenda, and I think it got pulled because not everybody's here, but I'm here in support of the effort to name a Northside campus after Margie Irwin, the amazing lady behind the district's Gifted and Talented program, which I was blessed to be a part of for 10 years. Went to Lackland City, which is now Allen, Rayburn, and then John Jay. So my GT career began at Lackland City when I was in 3rd grade. I remember seeing one of my classmates. She would always leave for a day, and I asked her, so where do you go? And she said, oh, I go to GT. It's for smart kids. And I thought, I'm kind of smart. You know, this sounds interesting. So I asked my teacher, took some tests, and then I started getting to go with her to these classes. And I remember one of the first assignments was a video report we had to give on a president, and I chose Chester A. Arthur just because I like the sideburns. And I remember during the filming, I could not stop laughing while I was on camera. I have no idea why, but thank God that didn't last. So the next couple of years, you know, the program started to grow. We would take a bus. We would actually go to Meadow Village Elementary, and we'd work with kids from other schools. And the weekly field trips were really fun, and I enjoyed those. But it's what and how we learned that that's what I really remembered, like the nonlinear, the problem-solving skills, and other things that weren't available in the standard classrooms at that time that really pushed me and others to think about things in different ways than we had before. And I didn't feel, it wasn't an insular community to me. It was a separate community that I enjoyed because many of us were hungry for something that was just completely different and more challenging that we really didn't have in the regular classroom. Now, my senior year, I enrolled in independent study mentorship where I worked with Maury Vasquez, who was a sports reporter at Ken's. Of all the classes I've ever taken in my life, that one's had the biggest impact in my life. Because when I first took it, I kind of ignored the independent and the study part and fell behind in my work and told my mom, the class is too hard, I just can't do it. So before I was able to get out, the teacher met with my mom and basically told my mom I wasn't doing any of the work. So my mom basically looked at me and said, I'm SOL, and I'm not going to get out of the class just because I didn't want to make the effort. But that class taught me a lot, really, about being a grown-up, holding myself accountable, and helped me develop an attitude and work ethic that has really helped me over 20 years. 4 years after that class, I got my first job in journalism. I'm still at it 18 years later. And then the lessons that I learned there also helped me and my wife in a completely different direction a couple years ago when we opened up a coffee shop, Rosella Coffee, by the way, with zero experience in food and beverage industry or in the restaurant industry. And last weekend, we celebrated 2 years of being open, and now we've got our sight set on a second location as well as a roasting warehouse. And you can really connect the dots however you want, but to me, it started with that curious kid in third grade who wanted to know where this other girl was going and what made that classroom so special. And I know I'm not the only one in Northside with a story like that. And I know we have other people here who are in support of Mrs. Irwin, and if they could kind of stand up real quick. And I think it's long overdue for the district to honor a truly gifted and talented lady whose efforts help thousands of students chart a new course in their education and way of thinking, helping them reach their potential even a little bit more. And if it gets on the agenda and I need to come back and tell some more stories, I can do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we don't have any other speakers. The next item of business is curriculum instruction, the 2016 summer school programs. Dr. Mora?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Chumley. So in your packet or on your computer, you have provided for your approval our summer school programs to be offered, as you said, this summer. These programs include what we call regular programs for high school, middle school, and elementary. And we have 14 support type programs that are accelerated instruction, credit retrieval. We have our state mandated bilingual and ESL programs, our newcomer programs, special ed programs, and a summer bridge program. We also are proposing summer enrichment programs and these are programs that are supplemental to what we already do, including GT for our Title I schools, our Math and Science Academy for our English language learners, our Title I Science Summer Camp, our dance leadership for our deaf dancers, and then all sorts of fine arts programs based on the choir and the extra days that the individuals get. They run their summer programs. And lastly, we have adult and community ed. We have Learning Tree summer enrichment that are grant funded. We have Learning Tree that is tuition based. We also have San Antonio Parks and Recreation and community ed programs. Those are pretty typically the programs that we come recommending to you every year. There is one that I would point out, and it's summer program for first graders who are not quite up to where they should be, and they're going to be placed in second grade. So we're providing a kind of a bridge program, a summer school program for those students so that they can catch up. At the there you have all of the backup information, the budget information. At the very back page, there is a budget summary, and we are spending, with your approval, $3,605,000 on summer school programs. Of that, only $171,000 comes out of our local money. They're either grant, AP funds, City of San Antonio, high school allotments, special ed, state comp, and some other funding sources. And we provided this information at the Academics Committee and also reviewed these with NEIC. And some folks from admin are here, and I'll be glad to answer any specific questions that you might have about any of these proposals.
Okay. Bobby is academics chair. Did you have any comments? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't see your light. Thank you.
Yeah, we did have the opportunity definitely to discuss it at the academic committee and to go in a lot more detail and ask some questions that we had about some programs. You're very thorough, both in meeting the needs of our students and providing some growth opportunities also for those students. The other significant thing I'll point out, Dr. Moore just mentioned the cost of the district's $101,000. But if going back years, that's been a significant decrease also to the district. So while we've been able to increase the amount of programs we have, at the same time, the budget has, from a district, say, dropped pretty significantly also. So we were going to recommend approval as presented.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second? All right, so it's been moved and seconded that we approve the summer school programs as discussed. Is there any further discussion? Do any other trustees have questions? Linda, I just had one. If you could just briefly, which programs are new? Do we have, because I know we have such a...
The only new one is the one that I mentioned, is a summer school for first graders.
Okay.
Because they're not behind enough to be retained, but we want to do some remediation before they go into second grade. And some years ago, we took those programs away to save money, and so the only programs that we offer are for students that are going to be retained.
Okay.
So that's the only
new one.
Yeah.
And then I was going to ask you, if a student doesn't have the money to pay for summer school, do we have any kind of funding source or program or?
The only summer school we charge for is high school summer school. All the others are covered by grant funding and.
Right, but if we have a high school student that doesn't have the money.
There's tuition assistance.
Yeah, we do have some dollars set aside.
Yes, they do have dollars set aside, and the counselor of that child can recommend tuition assistance and that gets approved.
Okay. Do the schools know, I mean, do the counselors know to offer that? Okay. All right.
We follow up with the head counselors right before, here in April, we'll follow up with the head counselors for reminding that, go through the procedure for that.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. There's no further discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Linda, thank you.
Thank you.
And you need to leave.
Yes, I'm driving to Austin.
I think you're done with us, right? So.
I'm not done. I'll be back, but.
Oh, no, but I'm saying.
Okay, let's not start rumors.
No, I told you, you can't ever retire.
Safe
I'm
travels.
sorry. Anyway, we want you to be safe and
Thanks.
and
I
so
will.
please.
Thank you so much.
And I think we have some students here. Do we have any students here? No? Okay. Y'all look young enough to be students in college, so I thought that y'all were.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what
Right,
what was
that's what
meant.
I'm asking. That's and what whose class? Okay, at UTSA. Okay, that's what we meant. No. No, well, we're glad to have you with us. Okay, the next item of business is Business and Finance, the budget amendment number 2 for the school year 15-16.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley.
Castellini.
Typically, Budget Amendment 2 is presented to the Board of Trustees in February of each year. However, to accommodate such a busy February schedule, we elected to bring the Budget Amendment 2 to the board for consideration this month, and this is that particular item. The details of the Budget Amendment 2 were discussed at the February Finance Committee meeting in detail. At that time, there were no particular questions or follow-up that we needed to do, and certainly Ms. Freeman will comment on that a little later. Budget Amendment 2 is typically characterized by mid-year adjustments and realigning of resources in the general fund, and as usual, this particular amendment does not carry any other adjustments to other funds, just the general fund. In your packet, in the attachment on page 2 is an executive summary of the amendment, and the detail follows, and the last two schedules are just in summary format of what the budget looks like with these adjustments. I do want to mention that the proposed Budget Amendment 2 includes adjustments related to the base budget, one-time cost, and other revenue offset items. Excuse me. The amendment increases the base budget by $259,419, and it increases the one-time cost budget by $253,380, increases the revenue offset appropriation by $269,762, and increases the revenue budgets by $62,762, resulting in a net decrease of budgetary fund balance in Budget Amendment 2 of $719,799. With that, I would be more than happy to answer any particular questions that board members may have related to this entry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Freeman, did you have any comments as Finance Committee Chair?
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. We did talk about this in our last finance meeting, I guess 2 or 3 weeks ago, whatever that was. But to the board, the individual items in here, some of these items had been talked about in other committee meetings that we had, academics in particular. One item I thought that was interesting, and perhaps I'll call to your attention, is the one-time cost of $50,000 for postage relating to STAR exam. You know, we always think about STAR exam, the time it takes, and other costs. We never think about, I assume that's the postage to mail the results to the individual families' homes. $50,000. I know we have a lot of kids, but it's a good chunk of change. I move approval, Ms. Chumley.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the Budget Amendment 2 for school year 2015-2016. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. Next item of business is technology services, fiber optic, Ethernet, wide area network WAN services.
It's pretty good.
Now, please explain exactly what that means.
It's a mouthful. You're going to get a little bit of a lesson in that tonight, hopefully. Good evening, Dr. Woods, Ms. Chumley, and members of the board. I'm here to present this evening a recommendation for approval of fiber optic Ethernet wide area network, or WAN, services for Northside. Before I begin the presentation, however, I'd like to recognize two of my directors that are here with me this evening. I have with me Ernest Vasquez, who's the Director for Infrastructure Services, and also Joe McMonigal, the Director for Technology Acquisitions and Project Management. Both of these individuals were put a lot of time and effort in researching WAN service options for us and reviewing and analyzing the numerous amounts of information, over 700 pages of documents that we received back in proposals. So I'd like to thank them for all their hard work in helping come to this recommendation this evening. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Wesley Scott, Assistant Superintendent from Business, Budget and Finance. He worked with us as well on
putting together the budget and cost analysis information and putting together this recommendation. With that, I'd like to start by saying we're currently under contract and receive WAN services from AT&T. However, our contracts will be expiring beginning the 2017-2018 school year, which has precipitated the need for us to solicit for proposals for WAN services. Next slide. Oh, you got it. Thank you. When we started putting together this proposal, we looked at some specific objectives that we wanted to meet in the proposal recommendation. And you see here on the slide 4 of those specific objectives. First, we wanted to meet the district's need for additional WAN capacity and bandwidth beyond our current capabilities. To explain a little bit what that means, we currently have WAN service to all of our campuses, and at the speed or the bandwidth of 1 gigabit bandwidth to each of our elementary schools and district facilities, and 10 gigabit to our high school facilities. And Ernest Group spends a lot of time analyzing the capacity of bandwidth that we utilize out to our campuses every day, and we're growing exponentially in the amount of bandwidth that we use. Of course, everything requires technology, lots of things out in the cloud, on the internet, so we are seeing exponential growth in our bandwidth needs across the district. And so, which leads us to part of the second piece of our objectives. We wanted to compare pricing and technical solutions for what's known in the industry as dark and lit fiber and leased or private fiber. So I'll try to briefly explain the differences between those types of solutions. So dark versus lit fiber. What we currently have in place with AT&T right now is lit fiber. So we lease fiber from them, and they light it by providing the electronics on both ends to light the fiber for us. Dark fiber is the provider would install fiber throughout the Northside network, and Northside would provide the electronics on each end to light the fiber. So they're just basically providing us fiber. We provide the electronic equipment to light the fiber. Make sense? Okay. Private versus leased. So private fiber is a fiber that a vendor provides to us that's for private use of Northside only. Nobody else has sole use of that except for us during the period of that contract. We don't own it, but it's for our private use during the period of that contract. Versus leased, which is what we currently have with AT&T, and that type of instrument, we lease the fiber from AT&T. We don't own all of that physical fiber. We have a contract with AT&T for a certain amount of bandwidth. And so they provision on that fiber strand that amount of bandwidth. However, there's other customers that are also on that same fiber that are using under contract for whatever various amounts of bandwidth. So we share the physical fiber, but lease the amount of bandwidth based on our contracts. So dark lit, private lease. So we solicited pricing options and technical solutions for all of those combinations of services.
Go back to private just one more time.
Yes.
Explain that again.
Okay, so private fiber would be a solution where the vendor provides us with the fiber, so they would lay out the fiber.
But they still own it.
They own it and service it. But we own the rights to exclusively use that fiber for the period of that contract.
And so the fiber we have now is leased.
That is correct.
Okay.
So in those two different scenarios, a private fiber scenario, if we need to increase bandwidth, we own the fiber. We have the capability to do that as long as we change the electronics on each end. No need to redo contracts because it's for our private use. Lease fiber, we only lease a certain amount of bandwidth. And so every time we see a need and growth for additional bandwidth, we have to go out for new contracts because it's for a specific amount of bandwidth.
Okay.
Okay. The third objective in our RFP was to try to leverage changes in the federal E-rate program to maximize reimbursement dollars from the new federal E-rate 2.0 program. Specifically, what we're looking at here is changes in the program last year that would allow us to specifically look at dark private fiber options because the E-rate program changed the eligibility requirements for some of the capital construction expenses of dark fiber options. They're now eligible for reimbursement, whereas in the past they weren't. So that makes it really kind of from a cost perspective, more feasible for school districts to look at that type of option because of the capital expense that's required from the private fiber options. And lastly, we would want to find a solution that would, of course, be the overall best value to the district. So in December of 2015, we released the RFP requesting proposals that were due back to purchasing no later than 26 January. And we held a pre-proposal conference in early January on January 6th where we addressed any questions bidders may have on the proposal. Okay, next slide there. We received back 6 complete proposals, and you see the list of companies that responded to this particular proposal. They were AT&T, Time Warner Cable, Lightstream, Conterra, Unite, and Zio. The RFP was scored by 6 individuals in technology services on a committee, and it was based on a weighted criteria that was detailed in the RFP. The highest scored proposal was from a company called Conterra. They were most highly rated both in the technical and the price categories. Now they proposed several different options, and the most highly rated proposal was their dark private fiber option. They also bid a lit private fiber option. So they bid, we asked in the proposal for a combination of pricing proposals from a 5-year contract option through 20-year contract options in 5-year increments. And what we're recommending at this point is a 10 or 15-year contract option. You'll see the last bullet there, the bottom line in terms of the pricing option, and this is the 10-year cost analysis. In your packets, you have another sheet that kind of shows you a 10 versus 15-year cost analysis for all of the proposers, not just Conterra. But just to kind of look at the 10-year overall cost, what we're looking at is a capital construction expense or a one-time cost of roughly $9.3 million and an annual recurring operating expense of $428,000, which over a 10-year period would cost roughly $13.5 million. To give you a level set compared to what we currently have, because that might be some sticker shock value for some of you that aren't used to paying this bill every month. Currently with AT&T, our yearly cost, our annual operating expense compared to $428,000 is right at $1 million. So we pay $1 million every year right now for the current contract that we have, which is for 1 gigabit to our 80-something sites and then 10 gigabit to our high school sites. Now, this proposal is for 10 gig for every site. So we would have increased bandwidth from the get-go. And of course, in your pricing proposals also you'll see, again, referencing the E-rate program. This type of service is eligible under Category 1 for the E-rate program. So as long as E-rates continues to be funded by the federal government, this would be a reimbursable expense for us, and it's based on our economically disadvantaged rate for the district. Our current EcoDisc percentage factors us at an 80% discount. So we pay $1 million for AT&T, we get back 80%. So right now it's in the end it's about a $200,000 cost every year to provide WAN service for the district. So again, looking at this cost model, 80% of that $13.5 million would be reimbursable to the district. Next slide. So to wrap up, we feel like the proposed Conterra solution does meet all the objectives that I outlined earlier in the presentation. It provides us 10 gig connectivity to all current sites. And when I say 10 gigabit connectivity, let me make that tie back to the private fiber option. I say 10 gig because that is what was proposed, and that would be the type of optics that would be provided by the vendor. And so they're going to give us 10 gig optics on the end of the fiber. So at such a time we decide that our bandwidth needs grow at any given site, because the fibers are for our private use, we can increase the bandwidth whenever we want, at whatever time we want. What we would need to work with the vendor would be to change out the optics on the end of the fiber to go beyond 10 gig, because that's kind of where the technical limitation of the physical device is at this point. It's kind of in that increment. So it would allow us to scale beyond 10 gig at a very, very low cost. Again, this information was presented at the Technology Committee meeting on February 19th. Pending any questions from the board, Ms. Chumley, this concludes my presentation, and I would recommend to the board approval of RFP 2016-032 for WAN services to Conterra Solutions at this time.
Okay, don't walk away.
Yes, ma'am. I suspected there might be one or two questions.
I think so. Mr. Lopez, as Technology Committee Chair, do you have some comments?
No, I didn't really have any questions, but I was going to wait for somebody else to have any questions if somebody else did. I mean,
Was there anything that you
motion.
wanted to report from the committee
No,
at all? No?
Just
Okay.
Anybody else?
Okay, you were ready to move?
Yeah, I was going to make a motion to approve the recommendation that Lori had provided for us for the award to Conterra.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the RFP 2016-032 for network WAN services. Ms. Freeman?
So in looking at this, you said the recommendation, we talked about it at Technology Committee about the advantages perhaps of a 10 or a 15-year. So is this coming to us with, could be 10, could be 15? Dr. Woods, how are we looking at this?
That is the recommendation, is to allow staff to determine the best way to go to either, whether 10 or 15. There's pricing proposals on both, and we would recommend the same vendor regardless of the length of contract awarded.
So that decision will come later on, is what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That was all, Ms. Chumley.
Okay. Do any other trustees have any questions? I've got a couple.
Okay.
Has the 1 gigabyte been adequate with the high schools?
It was not, and matter of fact, that's why we changed it to 10 gig.
I'm
one
sorry,
July.
Lori, was the 10 gig?
It
has
was
that been adequate with the high schools?
We just moved to that this past July, and it was 1 gig, and we were saturating bandwidth there, and so we moved it to 10 gig this past July, and at this point, it's right. We anticipate 10 gig being sufficient for the near term. Probably my crystal ball says at least 5 years. I can't foresee us going past a need for 10 gig.
See, I would think that we would be using a lot more technology at our high schools, so what was the need to have 10 gig at the elementary schools?
We have only 1 gig at elementary schools.
And has it been sufficient, and so why would we increase to 10 gig at the elementary schools?
We're getting close. I think we're seeing about 800 or 900 meg.
But also the price point, it's like 1 gig for this price, or $2 more, you get 10 gig kind
Right.
of thing. So it's like, why would we not do that for our high schools? Because the number one use, because our internet's only 4 gig, by the way. We're going to go to 10 gig on that, so we got to match those up. So YouTube, the number one bandwidth hog in the district, but it takes about 30% of our bandwidth. YouTube.
Another point to that discussion, because that was an internal discussion that we had, is that if we were to decide to go with 1 gig at this point, we would have to purchase 1 gig optics. And then let's say next year we decide, well, that's too low, we need to go to 10, then we would have to go to the vendor. That's part of the price point in terms of the low cost. You have to change out the optics. So then we'd have to turn right back around probably in a year or two and say, we need 10 gig optics for the ends of the fibers.
Well,
So
I
we-
could see the 10 gig, the high schools, I'm not quite sure you need 10 gigs at the
We're-
elementary
we're
schools
close.
when we're doing all right with 1 gig. So I guess that's what I'm asking is,
Well, as the virtualization grows in the labs that we're doing right now, that's where the band, because all that traffic comes back to the data centers. They don't, the PCs aren't, it's not loaded on a PC anymore. Now it's just a virtual machine that comes back to the data center. So that's where the bandwidth, we're gonna see a lot of that bandwidth utilization at the elementary schools. They're gonna go over 1 gig. There's no doubt about it. You're right, though. It may be 5 gig, but as far as.
but it's price
Right,
point,
the-
it's
right,
better,
and-
it's a better deal for us to go
Right.
with the 10 instead of,
In the optics, it's kind of 1 gig, 10 gig is, what's the next one? 40, yeah. And so it's really based on the optics that you put on the end of the fiber, so it's 1 or 10 gig.
and so we don't own this fiber though.
We would not own the fiber, it would be for our private use, but as part of the vendor would be responsible for operating and maintaining the fiber, so.
And what happens, because if I'm thinking about this right, and we were talking about them having to come in, dig trenches, lay fiber, right?
Yes, yes.
And
Or
we're not-
poles, yeah.
And we're not gonna own it.
That's
So
correct.
then what happens if they come back, whenever this contract's up and they wanna double what their cost is? They own the fiber, so are we talking about, because I think I misunderstood when I first was thinking about this. I thought this type of investment was us owning the fiber, and then they would continue to be the provider. And I'm just gonna, it's easier for me to just talk Time Warner Cable
Yes.
stuff,
Yes.
from a layman's perspective.
Yes.
So I thought we were gonna own it. They were gonna lay it, we were gonna own it, we were gonna pay for them to lay it, and we were gonna pay for them to be the servicer on it. But if we don't own it, in 2 years from now, or however long our contract is, when it comes back up for bid, they come back and double it because now they've laid all the fiber. And so then are we gonna then have to pay to say, have them take it out and have the next person lay it again? I'm concerned about that piece of it because it seems to me that once they've laid that fiber, that we're kind of in their, I don't know, I'm concerned about, I have no problem with this increasing, and we're dealing
Right.
with that at work right now.
Right.
But that's the piece, is I really.
The ownership
I
piece.
thought that we were gonna own it, and then we would be paying them the servicing, so that concerns me.
One thing that's relevant, I think, in this is that we're talking about lengths of contracts in the 10 to 15 year time frame. So you're talking about a pretty solid length of time. So you're not talking about a short-term problem of that magnitude.
Which is part of the reason why we costed out the pricing options in those lengths.
But within a 15-year period, we're gonna need more. I mean, right now, we're saying, let's move to 10. The reality is, the technology use is just gonna get bigger and bigger. So within a 15-year period, they're still gonna have us because for us to go to 15, you had said we're still gonna have to purchase more from them, right?
Not more
Yeah,
fiber,
right.
we would just have to change out the optics on the end.
And that would be something they would not have any part of. I mean, we would not be renegotiating with them if we wanted to increase our bandwidth on
No.
this.
No.
That's correct. And the other thing is, obviously, with a 10-year contract, there's going to be so much competition in this city for fiber that if we got off of them, we could jump to somebody else very easily because they're going to have their fiber already laid. A lot of people are laying fiber. They're not the only ones laying fiber right now. That's all going all over the city. So in 10 years, yeah, we'll probably be at 40 or 100 gig. But if something like that, a scenario that you mentioned, happens, we can say, well, you know what, we're going to, just like we're doing now with AT&T, well, we're jumping off of you and going somewhere else. 'Cause we got
But
Time
we're
Warner.
not, but we wouldn't have, they'd still have to, even if they've laid fiber someplace else, they'd still have to come back and lay it on our campus.
Right, they'd have to do that.
I mean, we're still talking about having to dig up, trench out. I mean, we're still talking about all of that. That's the only thing and
I
I
understand your
remember when
concern.
people said there was gonna be lots of competition from health providers too.
Mm-hmm.
And we're down to what, 3 major providers now?
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know if I share your optimism of within 10 to 15 years that everyone's going to jump on this and we're going to have all these great people competing with each other. I don't know. That's the piece
We feel comfortable with it.
I'm
Google's
concerned
gonna
with.
be here. We know that for a fact. They're coming. Google's going to have fiber all over the city. So we feel comfortable with those type of companies that are coming in, and there's a lot of them coming behind them. So they lay the fiber, it's going to be available, whether they abandon it and or go bankrupt or whatever, because a lot of these companies will come in and do stuff, but the fiber's going to be there. Someone else is going to pick that up. So we feel very comfortable that we're going to be able to either renegotiate at 10 years at a good price, because the price is only going to go down, it doesn't go up. It's only going to go down. Now, as we've seen throughout the years, it's always gone down. So we feel very comfortable with it.
To your point, I certainly feel like in 10 years, this company is going to have an advantage over another company that doesn't have fiber laid to our campuses. But again, you know, we wouldn't have to pay the capital expense by staying with this company, but we would have the option to go back to leasing fiber with AT&T if the pricing is competitive. As you can see in the cost proposals, the pricing with the leased fiber options, which were the Time Warner cable option that you see in your cost analysis, and the AT&T pricing, the lit leased fiber options, they are not competitive with the private fiber options that were priced out. And so I think based on what we're seeing, there's a lot of school districts across the country that are moving to this model, specifically because of the affordability, not only in the operating expense, but the ability to, in a very affordable way, increase bandwidth beyond 10 gig, beyond 40 gig, because the fiber is going to be there, and it's going to allow us to expand to whatever our bandwidth requirements are.
And
physically, the fiber's there.
Right.
And
Which
it's,
is not the case in our current situation.
that is
Right,
correct.
and I know we need to do something. I'm just, in the 13 million, you're saying we're gonna get 80% back of the 13 million, and is that because of the change in the E-rate?
Yes, the changes in the E-rate program are specifically related to the private fiber. So there used to be rules around capital expenses, and it was not reimbursable to the extent that it is today. And so it was not an attractive option for school districts to try to do that type of construct, because the $9 million of capital expense was not reimbursable at 80%.
Well, and I'm worried about what happens if that changes, and then we have a $13 million a year, or no, it wouldn't be that high, because 9 million of it
Would be basically up front in the first couple of years.
It'd be the 428, right?
The 428 would be the annual operating expense, and you're actually making an argument for this proposal because
Well, that's what I was just
428
thinking,
per year
because
is
right
better than
now-
the $1 million a year that we're
Exactly.
paying
I'm trying to
currently.
find something
Yes.
that offsets,
Grab onto that, Ms.
offsets
Chumley.
what my concern is on this.
Remember that what we're paying now with AT&T would go up.
Yes,
We know that
regardless, it's
guaranteed.
going to go up because
It
we
would- we only
got to
have
go
1
with,
gig.
yeah.
So it'd go to 10 gig, that would go up quite a bit. Matter of fact, it would probably double or triple what we're paying now, because the house bill, the prices we're getting expired.
Right.
So since that expired, the $800 a month, and now it's $2,000 a month.
It would look more like on your cost analysis, the pricing for Northside would look like the AT&T or Time Warner cable costing.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
those also in your cost analysis assume reimbursement, just like
Yes.
this proposal.
And just a note on that, I think the E-rate, the model that we used was 70%. We assumed worst case in the
Right.
cost analysis. So the amounts you're looking at in there for E-rate reimbursement are actually 70%. And this year, based on our EcoDis, we'll be at 80%.
And Brian, you're recommending this without us having the ownership of the fiber optic.
Right. Yeah. If this was a 2-year contract, I'd say it's probably not worth it. But because of the length of the contract, because of what'll change in technology in that period of time, because of unknown needs over that period of time, I think that this is clearly, when I look at the financial analysis, the best solution for the school district. And then I think we will be in a strong position at the end of a 10 or even a 15-year contract to renegotiate.
And you're going to look at 10 or 15, which is going to give us the best deal. Okay, thank you, all of you, for your responses. Mr. Blunt?
Yeah, Dr. Wood sort of hit, when I hit this button, Dr. Wood sort of hit the major point I was going to add. I wouldn't advise the district technical-wise in a position as a trustee, but again, there's no way in the world I would purchase or own fiber for that length of time. for a lot of different reasons. And I would say I'd be very surprised if 10 or 15 years from now we're talking about fiber.
At
The
all.
technology advances that are occurring on the wireless side and other things that I don't think it'll be around anymore. But given that is another reason why I think this is the right approach.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Galindo, the administrative boundary proposal for Harlan.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Chumley, Dr. Woods, members of the board, as you know, we are opening Harlan High School in August of 2017. So the process to establish those attendance boundaries has begun, and we brought the initial to policy, and tonight we have both Debbie McNerney and T. Ricor here tonight to give you the initial proposal for the attendance boundary for Harlan High School. Ms. Ricor.
Thank you, Mr. Galindo. Ms. Chumley and members of the board, thank you very much for coming. I'm here to present to you this evening the proposal for the Harlan High School boundary. Harlan High School will open in 2017-18, and it's located at 14350 FM 471 West. It is the 11th comprehensive high school, and it's funded through Bond 2014. An overview of this presentation, we'll take a look at the goals for the boundary for Harlan, an overview of the Harlan zone, effects on sending and receiving schools, the details of the proposal, and we'll take a look at the pertinent considerations as well. Our objective for the boundary for Harlan was to provide sufficient and long-term relief for Taft High School to include ending the enrollment cap for students from Taft to Brennan. We also want to provide sufficient long-term relief for O'Connor and Brennan High Schools as well. We want to populate Harlan, excluding a senior class in its first year in 17-18. And in this process, we want to keep long-term boundary planning in mind to include middle school to high school feeder patterns. As we take a look at this map, just to orient everyone, we have the north side boundary, the high school, current high school boundary lines, and this is the county lines here for areas outside Bexar County and Bexar County itself. The green dash lines are the current middle school boundary lines. If you would click on it one time, thank you. Thank you, Monica. This area here shows a large area that is Government Canyon. As you can see, it takes up a considerable portion of O'Connor's and Taft's current boundary. And major roads, we have Highway 16, we have FM 471 West, and we have Petrenko Road here on the south. Those are the very high growth areas of the district. The location of Harlan, very importantly, is here along the district boundary line. We turn to looking at the projected enrollment figures for these three high schools. In 2017-18, you can see that between Brennan, O'Connor, and Taft High Schools, the average enrollment will be about 3,300 students at each high school. So the need to open Harlan High School in that year is very evident. Our target enrollment is 2,800. So if we look at the combined 5-year projection in 2020-21, we looked at 4 high schools in that same geographic area. We would meet our target enrollment of about 2,800 students if we divided it equally between all 4 schools if we added Harlan. But when we take a look at the 10-year projection, we are well above 2,800, and we anticipate 5 high schools in this geographic location. So at some point in time in a future bond issue, we will present information about that. Notice that the Taft attendance zone is projected to be over 5,500 students in 10 years. If we split Taft attendance zone in half, we would have 2,700 students at each school But then we would also have over 2,000 students that we would need to house from Brennan High School as it continues to grow. So lots and lots of growth in this area. Definitely evidence that we would need future high schools here. Okay. Next one. Considering the enrollment projections, campus capacity, current and future development, and Harlan's location, the north-south boundary for Harlan High School is very evident why we went north and south. Monica, if you would click it again. You can also see that within the middle of the proposal for the Harlan boundary, we have Government Canyon. So this large donut hole in the middle of the attendance zone is an area
Maybe
that would...
next time y'all can change the colors. I can't tell what boundary is what boundary. So maybe the next time just...
Certainly.
Okay?
The color of the lines or the shading?
The color of the lines, maybe.
This large donut hole in the middle of the Harlan boundary is where students will never live. So we came up here in this vicinity.
Is it better on this? Okay.
I'm sure it will be better on your monitor. It tends to wash out a little bit on the screen. Starting in the north from O'Connor, we have the areas from O'Connor to Harlan are all from Folks Middle School. It would be the Folks to O'Connor feeder pattern would become Folks to Harlan feeder pattern.
Two colors of blue.
So that's the areas in Bandera and Medina County, and then along Highway 16. Then we have an area here along FM 1560 that is also part of Folks Middle School that attends O'Connor High School.
So this is hard.
From Taft High School, we have the area in Medina County, as well as the areas along FM 471. This area here is all from Folks Middle School as well. Would make Folks Middle School 100% clean feeder to Harlan High School in this proposal. We also have another area here from Jefferson Middle School feeder pattern from Taft High School that is included in the Harlan boundary as well. And then from Brennan, we have the far western area of Brennan's current boundary that is included in the proposal for Harlan, and that's areas along Tally Road. This is this dashed line here is the proposal for the extension of Highway 211 that would connect Petrenko Road on up to FM 471 and would make a much more convenient route for students from this area. It's slated,
what's
slated
it?
for construction beginning this summer, and it would be a 2 to 3 year project. We have a little more information on that in the next one. Specifically, we'll take a look at the communities from each of the sending high schools. From O'Connor, we have the areas in Bandera County and near the Medina County line. These areas are large acre tracts and mobile home communities. The area along Park Road 37, which is Country View Estates, Big Valley Mobile Home Park, and Valentine Ranch. We come down here, the existing area of Highway 211, we have a couple of existing communities as well. They're large acre tracts. And then we come down Highway 16, and we have large acreage communities. Helotes Canyon is a newer community that will have very large homes as well. Finally, we're down by 1560, and we have older neighborhoods, and number 9 is a new neighborhood, Lantana Oaks. It's about half built out. Areas in the proposal from the current Taft boundary include the Taft portion that is in Medina County. Come down, these folks would come down FM 1283 to 471 to Harlan. We have the areas immediately near Harlan High School, in the Callison Ranch area. We have Oak Country Mobile Home Park, and Waterford Park, which is a brand-new community under construction, developing very quickly. Callison Ranch, Valentine Ranch, and Remuda Ranch are building like gangbusters. They are under construction, and lots of homes going in there, and will continue to build for many years. And we have the areas along Galm Road. This is an older neighborhood, number 6. We have 7, 8, and 9 are fairly new neighborhoods, but have been under construction for quite some time. They're well underway. Same with 10. 11 is Cross Creek, which is a fairly new neighborhood that is built by KB. And 13 is a combination of neighborhoods. Laura Heights is a neighborhood that is completed, fairly new, but on either side of it we have Silver Canyon and Brycewood, which are new neighborhoods. One is just starting with model homes and several homes under construction, and Brycewood, which is putting down roads as we speak. And then we have the areas number 14 and 15, which are the areas along Shanefield Road, Hills of Shanefield, Wild Horse Vista, Shanefield Place, Paso Fino, which is an apartment community, fairly new, and Wild Horse at Tausch Farms, another fairly new neighborhood that's continuing to expand. Next one. The areas in the Harlan proposal from Brennan High School are the far western area of the current Brennan boundary. They include the areas along Tally Road. Tally Road would come up here along the district boundary to Harlan in this area here. Number 2 is includes Saddle Creek Estates, which is a fairly new neighborhood. The other neighborhoods have been around for a while. Number 3 is Village at West Point West, which is an area that has not begun construction, but is slated to have lots and lots of homes when it does. And that those projections are those future development are included in our projections. The park at Cimarron is a new neighborhood that is almost built out. It's fairly small. West Oak Estates is built out. It's number 6, J-Bar Ranch, older neighborhood. Number 7, the several mobile home communities off of Tally Road. Number 8, Afton Oaks is a new community that is building as we speak. Number 9 is Stevens Ranch, again, a huge community in the future. Right now, there are just a few streets that have begun construction, have a few homes. And then Redbird Ranch, number 10, Trinco Run, and Texas Research Park fourplexes, which has just a handful of students. So looking at the number of students in all of these areas, from Brennan, we have 391 students in 17-18, which does not include a senior class. It grows to almost 1,600 students in 10 years. From O'Connor, it's 192 students without its senior class. It grows to about 400 students in 10 years. And then from Taft, it's 856 students its first year without a senior class. And as we said, pretty much splits Taft's boundary in half by 10 years, and there's over 2,700 students from the Taft area in Harlan. When we take a look at the effects on the sending and receiving schools, the proposal shows that Harlan opens with 1,564, and that is for the 3 grades.
It's a huge campus for 1,500 kids.
Harlan grows quickly and reaches 2,800 by year 5, 2021. And if no school opened to relieve Harlan, it would be over 2,100 students over its capacity by 10 years. If you take a look at Taft High School, Taft is right at its target. It is beautiful at 2,800 students across a 10-year timeframe. With a target of 2,800, O'Connor is higher than desired in its near term at 3,140. But as the area ages, as it's projected to, it will be at or near its target over the 10-year timeframe. We didn't want to take too many students out of O'Connor High School as it is projected to age. We'll show you a few of the options that we considered as we look at the alternatives that we looked at, show you why we chose this one. Brennan is also good near term at about 2,700, and it continues to grow over the 10-year time frame. However, it reaches 3,198 in 10 years, but it does not exceed its capacity in this 10-year time frame. So that's a good thing. We haven't exceeded the capacity at Brennan High School. So as we continue, we have the neighborhood detail as we've outlined the neighborhoods and given you the information about the areas we've taken from each of the schools. This is the detail how we've reached that, and you see that the totals match what we've put on previous slides. Other pertinent considerations, we have not split any Northside neighborhoods when we've designed this proposal. There are 3 apartment communities in the proposal, Paso Fino, Juniper's Edge, and Texas Research Park fourplexes. And there are 6 mobile home communities in this area as well. We've listed them there, and none of them have much of an impact in the overall percentage of students in the Harlan boundary. The projections upon which this proposal are made include all of the developments that we understand are coming. And the students in this proposal have not been moved a second time at high school. Each was moved when we opened their respective high schools. So Brennan was last moved in 2010, the O'Connor area was last moved in 1998, and the Taft area was last moved in 1985. They have not been moved.
But we've had changes though that have affected Taft since '86.
Not in the areas that are included in
But we've
the
had
Harlan.
changes that have affected Taft.
But not,
Yes.
we're saying in the orange area, the students we're moving, we would not have moved them twice. Those areas in orange and Taft High School have been at Taft since it opened. Other areas have changed, but the areas we're moving have not changed.
Okay.
And we take a look at the approximate travel distances. We've given you some examples here of areas that some of them are closer to Harlan than they were to their current high school, and some of them are not as close to Harlan as to their current high school. For instance, Helotes Springs Ranch is currently in an O'Connor area. It's 8.5 miles to O'Connor. To Harlan, it would be 11.9 miles with an increase of 3.4 miles.
What about Helotes Ranch Acres and Beverly Hills? How far is that to Harlan?
Well, we've looked at Windstone. It's 2.4 miles to O'Connor and 7.7 miles to Harlan.
And Helotes Ranch Acres and Beverly Hills is actually closer than Windstone
Correct.
Stone to O'Connor.
It's within a few hundred feet. It's
Sample the
along
neighborhood
1560.
into those areas to give you an idea.
Yes. So we have shortened the route for some neighborhoods as well. Travel distance was a definite consideration, and we understand that will be a concern for many people. We have talked with Pape Dawson, the engineers for the State Highway 211 project, and they've reported that the funding for the State Highway extension between Petrenko Road and FM 471 is completely funded. It will extend 7.6 miles from Petrenko Road to FM 471, which will certainly help that route for some of the students from the southwest part of the district. And construction is scheduled to begin summer 2016 and should be completed in 2 to 3 years. Here's a snapshot of the middle school to high school feeder percentages. If we took the 2017-18 projection and superimposed the Harlan boundary on top of it. So for Bernal, for instance, we had 100% clean feeder to Brennan High School, and we've pretty much split that with Harlan. 52% would go to Brennan, 48% would go to Harlan. And please keep in mind, many, many changes will occur over the 10-year time frame. So this is just a snapshot, and this is just a moment in time for 2017-18. As neighborhoods continue to build, as new schools continue to open, a lot will change over that time frame. So these percentages are not set in stone and are not there for the 10-year frame. The area from Briscoe is currently a 95% Taft High School, 5% Brennan High School feeder. Those are the area, the 5% that go to Brennan are Frontera, which is a newer neighborhood right across the street from Brennan High School, and North San Antonio Hills. And we have taken a little piece of that area and sent it to Harlan. That is the area adjacent to Harlan High School, Oak Hills Mobile Home Community, and Cobblestone, which is right off of FM 471. Those are the areas that are currently in Briscoe Middle School that would be included in the Harlan boundary. Now, Folks Middle School, as I said, we have improved the 82% Taft, 18% O'Connor to 100% clean feeder for Folks Middle School. And then Jefferson Middle School, we have 51% Taft, 49% O'Connor, and we would then have 16% Harlan, 34% Taft, and 49% O'Connor.
Do you know which area is that 16% Harlan?
I absolutely do. Those areas are, do you want to go back to the map?
No, just, you can tell me.
The
too. That's-
Shanefield Road, the North Shanefield Road areas that I talked about, Hills of Shanefield, the Wild Horse at Tausch Farms, Paso Fino, that apartment community, all those areas right there off of Shanefield Road. Now we take a look at some of the alternatives that we considered. We considered moving Wild Horse neighborhood from O'Connor High School into Harlan High School. However, when we took a look at the projected enrollment, it makes O'Connor much smaller than the target in the out years and makes Harlan too large before a reliever high school opens. So, for instance, the effect of moving Wild Horse out of O'Connor High School and into Harlan's attendance zone would mean that O'Connor would be 2754 in 17-18, but it would decline to 2,200 students over the 10-year time frame. Harlan would be over 3,300 students in 2021-22 and would quickly exceed its capacity before we were able to open another school.
But another school is 22-23.
It would exceed its capacity before 22-23. There's over 500 students, high school students, in just that one neighborhood. And we felt that moving that many students out of O'Connor was detrimental to O'Connor and was also something that we wouldn't be able to turn another high school around and open before Harlan would exceed its capacity. So we definitely considered that, but felt that it was not in the best interest to include that in the attendance zone. Another alternative we considered was leaving the Shanefield Road areas, those Jefferson Middle School areas. We considered leaving those at Taft High School. However, it really didn't provide sufficient relief to Taft High School over the 10-year time frame. While Taft could hold the 28 to 3,000 students that would be in its attendance zone, we felt it was best to keep Taft at right at 2,800, make it its target, and include those students in the Harlan zone.
Even at the effect on the middle school?
I mean, that is something that we have to balance, as I said, the changes that will occur over the years, the size that we open Harlan, the relief that we provide the current high schools. There are many, many things to balance and many, many decisions to be made. We felt it was in our best interest for Harlan and for Taft to include that in the Harlan attendance zone. You know, that would be our proposal, our recommendation. We'll take a look
I think
at
the other thing that's really relevant there is what size how that impacts the size of Harlan at the opening. It's roughly 200 students.
Yes.
I guess it's all your perspective of what is the piece you want to give.
It's absolutely, it is a balancing act across the board.
Yeah, that's not my perspective.
The next alternative that we considered was leaving the southwest corner, Redbird Ranch and Petranco Run areas off of Petranco Road in the Brennan High School zone. However, it left Brennan High School too large before a reliever high school could open. Brennan would exceed its capacity in 21-22 if we left those two neighborhoods in Brennan, so we included those in Harlan, so that even though there's growth in the Brennan zone, it would not exceed its capacity across 10 years. We took a look at students in special programs. We wanted to make sure that the students from the communication arts who reside in the current Taft attendance zone that become part of the approved boundary for Harlan, those students may remain at communication arts under the magnet transfer guidelines. And a similar scenario for the O'Connor Ag Program students that reside in the O'Connor attendance zone. If that becomes part of the Harlan boundary, the student may remain at O'Connor under the Ag Program transfer guidelines, provided they continue in the Ag Program. One thing we were able to do with the proposal for Harlan High School is to lift the cap from Taft to Brennan High School. When Harlan opens, the Taft to Brennan cap will be lifted, and cap students, but not their siblings, will have the option to complete their high school education at Brennan with transportation provided for 3 years through 2019-20. However, if the cap student resides in the approved boundary for Harlan High School, the student would be required to attend Harlan. Now, the cap area of Taft High School that is included in the Harlan zone is a very small area. Currently, there are only 8 students that it would affect if it were approved today, if that boundary were approved today. This would also only impact current year 8th and 9th grade students because 10th graders would be seniors the year that Harlan opens, so it would not affect them. And then transportation, all students currently receive transportation to their current high schools. Transportation would be provided if the area was included in the Harlan boundary, and seniors would continue to receive transportation to their current high school in 17-18. Students capped to Brennan High School would attend Harlan High School with transportation, and students who are capped from Taft High School to Brennan High School who are not part of the Harlan zone would receive transportation to Brennan, or they could elect to attend Taft with transportation. Transportation to cap students who elect to remain at Brennan would not apply to younger siblings. And that concludes my presentation.
I know y'all have put a lot into that, though the superintendent told me that he didn't think that this was going to be too bad a boundary. Brian, you were just trying to make me feel better about this.
Any boundary has its trepidations and its issues. It certainly does. And when you know you're affecting families, it's hard. You want to do the right thing.
Well, I know y'all have the best interest and positive intent when it comes to all of this. Do any trustees have any questions? Dr. Harl.
Well, some of the things that you talked about,
they addressed in our meeting, and it is a balancing act. It truly, truly is. And what you do to one side truly impacts the other. And so some of the things that the committee did like is, no splitting up of neighborhoods. So neighborhood integrity was important. Distances were an issue, although my homework assignment over spring break was to derive parts of it. So it wasn't just distances, but time. It's kind of going back to that Allison boundary. 10 miles is 40 minutes at different parts of the day, just because that area in certain parts is so congested. So distances versus time, and maybe we could reflect that too as part at peak times, going to and from schools is just, a thought in the future to look at. We did like the clean feeder with folks. That's always... Boy, if we could just have clean feeders,
Yes.
we know our kids would be more confident when they got to high school. I mean, that's always our goal. You certainly worked hard trying to look at that. The students that are currently in our smaller high school programs, whether it's communication arts or the ag program, would still have an opportunity to continue, and that again is a commitment the district always makes. But really, the neighborhoods, I think there's going to be some that during this process will be very vocal in expressing their desires, and that's part of this process. Yes. So, but like Ms. Chumley said, thank you again. You've done a tremendous job. This is the first time I've gotten to hear you present. You did a great job. So
thank you.
Thank you.
I don't do high schools very often. That's a
I
good
know,
thing.
I know.
I may have to change that over the next year.
I've gotten so used to Debbie's.
But, did I leave anything out? Those who were there? Sorry. Okay. Thanks. Well, it doesn't stop you from talking, Bobby.
Bobby.
See?
See? You're right. No, I was going to say, but we do have different opinions on whether or not it should be a clean feeder. I would say that among the board. Yeah, we just do. But the one question I do have, though, is just on the traffic flow. I think it's going to be real important.
You're off.
Talking to Carol.
That makes me feel so good.
Yeah, you're not alone, believe me. We may have to go back to the old system. The one question I do have for clarification, though, is on the traffic flow. And if you could help me a little bit, then I could maybe figure it out and ask a question. So I was sort of following Wiseman, and I think it's shown by the blue line right above Brennan.
Yes, right here.
But where we show Wiseman, we show it, and it goes straight through. We show that it's changing the tally.
This is Tally here.
But I thought, and what's throwing me off is Tally actually connects over to, from Petranco over to 471.
Correct.
So there's two components to it. Show me how that, how does that actually flow through?
You're correct, Mr. Blunt. This is Wiseman Road here.
Yeah.
It's also the boundary between Taft High School and Brennan High School.
Right.
This is Petranco Road here.
Right.
And Tally Road comes up and goes basically to the back door of Harlan.
Follows kind of the back.
Oh, that's fine. No, good.
Blue.
Good. So my question was going to be, and you may have just answered it, at least for like Redbird and some of the others, I guess part of the discussion is when 211's built, that actually may be, even though the miles have increased by 6 or so, from a traffic flow, it actually may be faster because you're pushing everybody out to 211 and you're avoiding that Petranco Tally nightmare.
Yes.
That's gotten more and more complex. And then I was trying to figure out for those that were closer to the south of Wiseman, which way they would go. And what you're saying, they would just follow Tally all the way out to Harlan.
Yes.
Which also potentially should be a lighter traffic pattern to some extent. So, okay.
That is true.
You answered some of mine. So some of that is going to base, so like you said, the mile and the time frame, but because of 211 and some other things and the way you're moving the traffic flow, it actually may be reduced time, even though it's increased mileage for that area. I can't address the O'Connor ones we're talking about, but I can address that one. Okay, thank you. That's all.
211 was 2 to 3 years?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
it starts in a few
scheduled
months.
to begin construction this summer and fully funded.
Knock on wood.
Yes.
Karen? Okay. We always talk middle schools, and I guess, T, what my concern is, and I know you have to do that balancing act.
Yes.
But there's sometimes it seems like the middle school effect has a greater importance or emphasis than it does here. And I think that's the piece that I get confused with, is when do you decide what emphasis you give to what? Because I understand, Carol, the folks middle school is great, but what you've done is you've taken and made the middle school percentages worse in 3 other middle schools than, and so you gain one clean feeder pattern. Having 2 middle schools that have a three split to 3 different high schools, that's terrible. I don't care for the middle school piece, what y'all have done on this. And the other piece, I'll be real honest with you, I'm going to find it extremely hard to support moving 1560, Helotes Ranch Acres, Beverly Hills, that Hearthstone, that group that, I mean, you go around the corner and you're at O'Connor High School.
Yes.
And then you're going to take them and you're going to put them, and you say it's only 7.7 miles is the difference.
Yes.
But what Bobby and Carol are addressing, you try to go out to Folks's, you go down 1560 or cut back to go Gom, when you're trying to get that area, that may be 7.7 miles, but you're talking 45 minutes easy.
Yes.
On a distance.
You're correct.
So
yes.
I don't agree with that at all. I really am not understanding why you pulled those schools, those areas, when you're talking, I think I looked at 192 kids. So I guess, those just from a first blush.
Yes.
I really have concerns. Actually, I can't support this at all with the Beverly Hills and that piece of it in there. I don't think that you've got enough of a difference from a kid's perspective and an amount of students, but the drive you're going to give these families, and those areas are aging out too. So when you're talking about the aging out of O'Connor, those areas are some of the areas that are aging out. You're not seeing this huge turnover or purchase in those areas.
I agree with
just
you,
really-
and it is definitely an area that we went back and forth on in whether or not to include it in their proposal, knowing that it was so close to O'Connor High School. The providing relief to O'Connor High School, it was tough to add 100 more students to O'Connor, knowing that early on it was still over 3,000 kids. So we wanted to, 1, provide relief to O'Connor, and 2, when we could not make a small percentage feeder pattern that we didn't feel that would change over the next 10 years, 2 middle schools and 2 high schools, essentially in the 10-year time frame, we felt like it was best to include it and make folks 100% clean feeder to Harlan in the proposal. I agree. There will certainly be some vocal people who.
I think that
that is in fact the purpose of a public hearing, right? Is to see whether that thinking really bears itself out, and if it does, then that's something that the board could consider. I think though the important. While that is a significant issue, there are issues on the flip side of that coin, right? For allowing that area to stay, if indeed that's the desire of the area, we'll have fewer students to populate Harlan to begin with,
Yes.
and then you'll have the feeder pattern issue
Yes.
in addition to that. So it will really be a question of what direction does the board want to go.
Well, how does leaving those how does that affect the middle school piece? Leaving those areas in O'Connor, how does that? I'm not understanding that. How that has an impact on your middle schools.
If that area remained at O'Connor, that would be the only piece of Folks Middle School that did not go on to Harlan. It would be about 9%.
But it's okay to have 9% at Briscoe, and it's okay to have 16% at Jefferson, but it's not okay to have 9% at Folks. And see,
Well-
that's the piece that I don't understand. I don't understand your reasoning on it's okay to do it. It's okay to do it to those areas and to do it to the kids that go to Jefferson or the kids that go to Briscoe, but it's not okay to have that percentage at Folks. See, that's a piece that I don't see the advantage of moving that area to have absolutely a minimum 45-minute drive, unless they go real early or they go late,
Yes.
to have the advantage of allowing Harlan to have a clean feeder.
Right. Well, I think the
I'm not sure
primary reason
I
to
agree with
include
that.
them in the Harlan boundary is to give to give O'Connor relief.
But
as
within
the
5
primary.
years, you see our numbers going down.
And
Within 5 years, we're dropping.
That's correct. That's correct. And the second reason why it's okay at some of the other middle schools is because of the future middle schools that we're opening that would affect those percentages. Those percentages are the ones that will be changing as we open Callison Ranch Area Middle School and Village at West Point Area Middle School, and then a future high school beyond.
So on those, let's say Callison, how would that impact what you're showing us now on the middle schools?
Well, we don't really have a boundary that we're
No, but when you say though that what you're basing these percentages on middle schools, and you say, but Callison will help balance these out, I'd like to know exactly what you're talking about, T, in relation to Callison balancing
Ms.
some of
Chumley,
this
when you
out.
look at where those two future middle schools are gonna be, one is right here next to Harlan in the transportation station, and another one will be down in this part of the district. So the likelihood that will impact Briscoe and Bernal and the southern part possibly of this area is higher. That's where those small percentage feeders are. We'll have an opportunity to come and clean those up with the opening of additional schools in the future. The likelihood that we're gonna come up here and touch a middle school is very small. So the goal was try to fix what we think is gonna be that way for the long haul, and those that we know are gonna are less than the desirable, but we know, when you look at this over the next 10-year period, we'll have, in addition to Harlan, as T showed you, a need for another high school and probably 2 middle schools. So during this 10-year period, you're gonna see this high school and then yet another high school change and 2 additional middle schools. So we'll have opportunity to come and deal with the middle school feeders in this area, but probably not up in that area. So that's why we wanted to address the clean feeder for folks in that north end now, because we likely will not come back and touch that area in the short term, but we will be coming back to touch areas at the south.
That's a good explanation. Thank you. Next steps.
We have, Ms. Chumley, the hearing set for May 5th. Before that, we'll present this proposal to SBAC next week on the 31st, and hopefully we'll bring you the final recommendation from the SBAC at the May regular board meeting.
Okay, so May 5th, and where's the
Taft
boundary?
High School, 7 p.m.
And who all gets notices of it?
The letters per the way we've handled this in the past, current year 5th graders through current year 9th graders that live in that orange area will receive letters, because the year this high school opens, those students would be 7th grade through 11th grade. So you'd be touching the high school kids that would be affected by the change, as well as those incoming 7th and 8th graders the year the school opens, so that they understand what's coming. We don't send it to the incoming seniors because they're not affected, they're remaining
Right.
at their current high school. And all that information will also be posted on the web.
Okay. Ms. Freeman, did you have anything?
No, I didn't. I was just to record Taft High School, May 5th, at what time?
7 p.m.
At 7?
Yes, ma'am. 7 p.m., May 5th, Taft High School.
Okay. Like you said, boundaries are always emotional, and high schools are even
Certainly.
worse than
certainly.
others. So, thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you all
Trustees, have
very
any
much.
other? Then I guess we'll see you guys again in May after this.
Thank you.
After we have the hearings.
Thank you, T.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item of business is, I need my glasses. The first reading and adoption of legal policies, TASB localized update. Mr. Galindo?
Yes, ma'am, and with your permission, as we've done in the past, we provided you with a summary of the legals. And would
Mhm.
like to move into the locals, if pleases you. So,
Okay.
So we'd ask for approval on the legals, and then we'll go into locals if that's all right.
Okay. Do any trustees have any question on the legal policies? No, so can I have a motion then, please?
I'll move approval of the legal policies as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the legal policies, TASB localized update number 103. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, and motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley.
You did vote. I'm saying aye on all of it, you just don't know, Linda. Okay, Ray, first
Okay.
reading of local.
Yes, ma'am, and obviously you have them on your computer there. The first one to bring to your attention is BF Local, and this policy deals with board policies. And on page 1 of 2, you'll see in their organization some minor recommendations, but language added, you'll see there in blue, that ensures that legal policies are coupled with local policies to fully understand the topic and avoid any duplication of relevant information. So something we already do in practice due to the way we have them organized, but now it is written into the policy itself. You also have under terms, new text explaining that board member and trustee are used interchangeably throughout policy. So that's now written there as well. And then you'll see right below that under harmony with law that any enacted law is applicable when effective. So again, just being a little clearer there as law affects our policies. And then if you scroll down a little under official policy manual, you'll see there that we now have language that states the official policy manual will be kept in the central office admin office rather than specifically the superintendent's office. So we actually do have paper copies, and those could be found in my office typically if someone requests those. And then on page 2, you'll see some language that has been stricken. And the reason that's been taken out is that the policy of distributing, the practice, I should say, of distributing policies, we no longer actually practice because it's all online. So except for on occasion actual copies of updates, we don't have the actual policies being distributed throughout different departments. It's all handled online. And so those are the major changes for BF Local, again, dealing with board policies. The next local policies, and I should have prefaced with this as well, I did send you a summary of this as well. There are quite a few of these, and I'll go at a brisk pace, but stop me at any time, and or if this is first reading, if we have questions, I'll be glad to get back to you. The next couple of policies deal with financial management, and the theme, I guess you could say, are federal guidelines, because the revisions that come to these next policies deal with new regs governing federal grants and awards. And this being the federal government, they're referring to it as EDGAR. EDGAR stands for Education Department General Administrative Regulations. And so CAA Local is the first of the two that are affected by EDGAR. You'll see language there at the top that includes now agents to the list of folks that you see at the top. You'll see some new language as well right in the center, compliance with state and federal grant award requirements and some cross-referencing. And the reason agents was added to the whole definition or the list of folks is just to broaden the list of folks that are affected, anyone dealing with any type of financial transactions, and also because that's the language now that is being used in the federal guidelines. If you flip the page or scroll to the bottom of page 2, there is an addition to the definition of fraud and financial impropriety, and you'll see number 13 added there, and there's very specific language now that addresses that failure to comply with the requirements imposed by law, the awarding agency or the pass-through entity for state federal laws is now specifically outlined in that number 13, and is again the last part of the definition of fraud and financial impropriety. On page 3, you'll see a different or a new section as well dealing with federal awards disclosure. All new language there in blue for you to see, and this text reiterates the legal requirement for a district to disclose in writing to the federal awarding agency any violations of federal law involving fraud, bribery, or any gratuity violations. So that's also clearly spelled out on page 3 of 3 of that policy. Again, that's CAA. The next one, again, also following the theme of finance and the federal regs, is CB Local. And this specifically these with state and federal revenue sources. This is a new policy And again, it comes as a result of Edgar. And you'll see on, I guess the biggest piece to this is right at the beginning under grants and awards. There's text authorizing the superintendent to act in 3 key areas, as you see, and it's outlined for you. One is for the application for state and federal grants and awards. 2, the approval of funds, so long as it's in the board-approved budget. And then 3, approval of grant and award amendments. And that's again on the first part of page 1 of 2. You'll see some more language on federal awards and conflict of interest right in the center of the policy. And this language clarifies what constitutes a conflict of interest as defined now by the federal regulations and local government in Chapter 176, and that's outlined in that first paragraph. And then on page 2 of this one, you'll see again some language there in relation to gifts and gratuities that also align with all these new regs in Chapter 176 that was previously mentioned. And so again, this is a new policy that comes as a result of the new federal guidelines. The next policy, switching gears, deals with security personnel, specifically for us, our police department. And it is a very minor recommended change. It's in the middle of page 2 of 3. And there's language there now that specifies that our police officers shall receive the minimum amount of education and training required by law, not by TCOL. And regardless, we've always, in discussing with the chief, have always met not only the minimum, but in many cases have gone beyond any type of training as far as our police force goes. And so that is now in our policy regarding police officers CKE local. And that's the only change to that policy. The next policy is CO. Switching gears even a little bit more, this is a new policy, and this one deals with food services. The main objective of this one is really to make sure that kids get a meal at school. The policy is recommended as a result of House Bill 352, which requires now districts to allow students to use a prepaid type of meal card and have a grace period to go along with it in case kids or parents exhaust the account. And so bottom line, again, visiting with Thomas Weary, we've already for many years in our district have had a policy in place or a practice of allowing charges from 5 at elementary to even at high school, and always offering an alternate meal and then working with the family to make sure that they get fed. And so not anything different for us to do. We can continue with the practice we have here with CO local. The next policy is DBD local, deals with employment requirements and restrictions of conflict of interest. You'll see a note up there at the top, really now requiring any employee who's involved with the planning, recommending, selecting, contracting of a vendor to file a disclosure statement. And so you'll see in red there the language stricken, which used to only require the superintendent, and now it requires, as I just said, any employee who's involved with any type of contracting and vendor. So that's the change for that one, and again, that's right in the middle of page 1 of 2, and that's really the only change to that policy, which again now broadens it to go beyond the superintendent. The next policy that you should have there is DH local. This one, again, is a little bit of a different topic. This one deals with employee standards of conduct. And in the center, you'll see there weapons prohibited and all new language in blue. And what we have here, and this is in part due to the new law of open carry, this now clearly clarifies for our employees that any possession of any firearm or weapon is completely prohibited on any district property at all times. And so, again, these are our employees, so the language there clearly specifies that's prohibited. You do have 2 exceptions, and they are noted there, 1 and 2. One is, again, we go to CKE that deals with our police department. They obviously will be allowed to carry a firearm. And then the second exception is actually at district-approved activities, which doing a little research here and talking to my high school colleagues, would involve any ROTC type of activities, as well as a hunter's safety class that we teach that requires a firearm. Although my understanding is there's no live ammunition, but there is a firearm that's involved. And so those are the two exceptions when we can have firearms used with our employees. And in this case, of course, like I said, in district-approved activities. On page 2 of the same policy, you see now e-cigarettes are added to the use of tobacco, which we were already practicing again, but now we have in policy. So at the bottom of tobacco, you now see tobacco and e-cigarettes, and again, how that is prohibited throughout our buildings, and even in district vehicles and everything else school-related, you'll see. And then on page 3 or 4, you do have an exception there in regard to the use, or I should say the possession of controlled substances. There's language added there to allow for possession and use as per a licensed physician's prescription. In other words, if you have on your person some sort of controlled substance, but with a doctor's prescription, obviously that is allowed. And even if it's your child's and it's in your purse or on you, that, of course, with a doctor's prescription is permissible. And again, this is all in regard to our employees.
Mr. Galindo?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, Carol,
I had
go
a real
ahead.
quick question. I didn't read this in anything local, but during spring break, a school district in Colorado has a problem with vaping.
With what? I'm sorry?
Vaping,
Oh, vaping.
the e-cigs,
Is
yeah.
that
Yes, that's-
considered an e-cigarette? So that would cover that. So that's not something different.
Correct. That is not any different. Considered the same. E-cigarettes, vaping.
So we wouldn't have to use that language just to cover our bases. Because when I came back, I hadn't noticed before, but on a couple streets that I drive on the way home, I now see locations where you can go. I don't know if it's a verb, vape. I don't know, but yeah,
Vaping instead of smoking.
instead of smoking.
My understanding, Dr. Harrell, and I can certainly follow up with TASB, is that e-cigarettes, vaping falls under the e-cigarettes umbrella.
Okay.
And therefore is going to be considered the same as tobacco and be prohibited. But I could certainly double check on
And
that.
just as long as it's made clear, I guess the student and parent handbook and.
Sure.
Okay.
We could do that. Okay. Moving right along, the next policy to kind of hit some highlights for you is DH. Is that right? No, I just went over DIA, excuse me, is the next one. Dealing with this employee discrimination, and a very minor change there in the definition that's been added, which includes now unpaid interns. And so obviously we would not want to discriminate with anyone, and now that has been included into the policy as far as any unpaid intern is considered part of our group, I guess, and you could say as far as the Northside umbrella of folks that work with us. The other, I think, more significant change to this one, having lived through it a few times, is on page 3 of 5, where in the past when we changed Title IX coordinators or Section 504 coordinators, we used to have to bring that for board approval. We now have, and it's been recommended, and I think it's a good recommendation, to have this as an exhibit. And therefore, if we ever do have people that change this title, we do not have to bring it to you, but rather can just go ahead and do that and make note of it in the exhibit that'll exist as part of this policy. And you'll see an example of that on page 3 of 5. And moving right along, the next policy to bring to your attention is FEA local. This one deals with student attendance. And you'll see there, as a result of House Bill 2398 in blue, some new language now that, because this House bill now extends the compulsory law through age 19, you'll see any reference to the student's 18th birthday or 18 altogether being deleted and changed to 19. And so that will obviously put us in compliance with the new law, the new compulsory law. And that's really the only change on a very very short one of one policy that we have, which is FEA. The next one to bring to your attention is FEC, also deals with attendance. And these are really just these changes recommended to improve the structure and be a little clearer, a little for clarity purposes. You'll see at the beginning of page 1 there, under consideration of all absences, a statement added regarding students attending 90% of the days the class is offered, and so that's clearly spelled out there. And then I think more importantly, you'll see on page 3, and they just moved the best interest standard to the end of, and it's number 7 now on page 3 of 4. And what this basically does is make sure that the overarching standard always, as we look at absences, is that when these committees, have any discussion, really consider holistically the student's absences and make a decision in the best interest of the student. And so that's now clearly outlined, like I said, on page 3 of 4. Anytime there's any concerns about absences.
Carol?
Now, just a real quick question with the new legal requirement for the 75,600 minutes, does this play out in any shape or form, or will it play out in any shape or form because of minutes, not days?
It's a good question that I don't have an answer for, Dr. Harrell.
I don't anticipate that those two things are connected.
It seems like, the handbook that came out, the attendance handbook.
Accounting.
The accounting department from TEA. I want to go back and review it just because it might impact policy, or maybe it might only at certain grade levels and not, or classes and not days.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Woods, that this applies more to the individual student, where the 75,600, I think, is more.
It's a school day.
Is the school calendar itself.
Calendar
right.
itself.
That's my feel and understanding as well.
So, but there again, I can certainly check for you.
I want to look too, so thanks.
You
Thanks.
I've got a question, Ray. You're not changing it, but it says attendance committees, the board shall establish an attendance committee or as many committees as necessary for efficient implementation of Education Codes 25.092. And that's 104 in FEC. And then if you go down to personal illness, it states, if a student has established a questionable pattern of absences, the principal or attendance committee may require that a student present a physician's or clinic's statement of illness after a single day's absence as a condition of classifying the absence one for which there are extenuating circumstances. But that says the attendance committee. So do our attendance secretaries just have the right to tell a parent that any other absences after a certain period, they have to bring a doctor's note?
Typically, not the attendance secretary, but an administrator might, Ms. Chumley, depending on whatever it is that they may feel are the extenuating circumstances. But
We may want to clarify that with some of our elementary schools, that it's not the attendance secretary, because that's what we're saying is
Right.
it's attendance committee. So does a parent have the right to request an attendance committee review?
I've never, as a principal, been through that process where I had a parent ask. Usually the committee and myself as a principal, when we did have, any type of concerns, came together and made, whatever decision we thought we needed to, and then would contact the parent. But
Who's the committee?
Typically, well, and I think it'll vary from elementary, middle, or high school, but you need to have an
Elementary.
administrator, attendance secretary, and typically a couple of teachers, primary and intermediate teacher.
Okay. Thank you. You're doing good. We're almost there.
Okay, where are we? GKA, Local Community Relations. Is that right? Yes. GKA, I guess, is the community relations piece, or kind of counterpart to the employee one about prohibiting weapons and e-cigarettes and that type of thing. So you'll see this in the middle, as far as prohibitions go, again, the tobacco and e-cigarettes, but this more on the community side versus the employee side. So you'll see new language there that will try to address the same concerns with community members. And that's a short, just page one of one. And then finally, last one is GRA, local, deals with government entities. And really, what this comes down to is the campus behavior coordinator, which at many of our schools may be an administrator, vice principal, is required to provide written notice to a parent within the time period described in law when the student is taken into custody and law enforcement under Chapter 37. And so you'll see not a lot of change on page 2, as we've always, as an administrator, will try to make a good faith effort with the parent if a student's going to be arrested.
I would hope so.
Yes, ma'am. It's now a little clearer in GRA local. And that, Ms. Chumley, is local 1.
And as always, if any
103.
trustees have any questions
ma'am.
after reading it, they can get back with you because we'll vote on it at our next meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
April regular meeting. Right.
Request for maximum class size waivers. Do you have any?
I do, unfortunately. We didn't think we'd have some, but we got some just at the end. We have 2. We were asking for approval for 2. This will be the last time we come for approval on waivers. It brings us to a grand total of 36 for this school year, which compared to last year was 35, so pretty much
Staying in range.
staying in range. And actually, when you look at the increase in students and number of classrooms, we actually did better. 36 out of 1,994 classrooms, where last year was 35 out of 1,954 classrooms. So at any rate, yes, we need a approval for a waiver at Meade Ellis in 3rd grade and one at Henderson in 2nd grade.
Okay. Do any trustees have any questions? If not, can we have a motion to approve the class, maximum class size waiver?
Motion to approve the waiver.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the maximum class size waiver as recommended. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, wait a minute, thank you, Joseph. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley.
And Dr. Woods, future agenda items.
Yes, ma'am. In your blue folder at your place, you've got the, obviously the list of items that we have to come before the board in future meetings. You also have some suggestions, and we put this in Friday letter, I think, before the spring break, some suggestions for retreat meeting dates over the summer. If you could give those to Ms. McGee, if you can mark the dates that you're available and give those to Ms. McGee tonight, we would really appreciate that. We'd love to get that scheduled as quickly as we can. You also have in your blue folder a ballot for the Region 20 election. And what we're being asked to do is to put a vote for 2 of those candidates, if you desire, 2 of the 3 that are on that are represented on the ballot. And then you've got in your folder, you've got a number of invitations. Communities and Schools is going to visit some programming at Holmes that they're particularly proud of. We've got the Career and Technology Showcase at Holmes. This one I thought you would be especially interested in, especially maybe a couple of you in particular. On Friday, April the 8th, they're going to have a campus tour at Marshall for the classes of 1951 through 54. And evidently, they have a large number of folks who have indicated they want to come. Invitation for celebrity reader, and then the annual retiree luncheon.
I'm way back.
So if you will, if before you leave tonight, you can give us the retreat date availability as well as your desire to vote in the Region 20 board election. And that is the end of that item, Ms. Chumley.
All right. Dr. Woods, I had one thing that I would like to have on an agenda item, and if it's on a board committee that I can't make, then I'd like to have it with the board. And that's the discussion of the requirements of what is required for, we have requirements for what teachers need to put on portal, the parent portal, but we really don't have any guidelines of what our expectation is for students that have for teachers that have other like their own website or their, and so I just think that we need to have, because you may have, we're talking about, we want to encourage the use of technology, but we don't really have guidelines for teachers that, as to what would be a minimum that they need to be able to present to have access to their parents. Like, should they be putting out their class curriculum where they know what the class, testing and schedule is for that week? What is the expectation? So you've got a really big spectrum of what's out there right now, and I just think that we at least need to talk about or discuss what is the expectation that we have for teachers' use in media in relation to what is presented for parents.
So do you want that to go to a committee?
I don't,
Technology?
yeah, Gerald, I think that'd be great, but if I can't make it, then I'd like it to come to the board. I just don't want it to go to the committee and then get it some advisement and then it's gone. Yeah.
We'll circle up with staff and see what's out there already.
And then, we had a couple of outstanding issues, the health benefits.
Right. Mr. Tatum and I have a meeting with UHC staff later this week on that very topic. So should have some information to come forward after that meeting, subsequent to that meeting.
Okay. All right, that was it. Thank you. Oh, Karen, Ms. Freeman, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Just call to your attention on June 18th. That is SLI here in San Antonio. So, but we should, that usually breaks about noon.
Summer
Just a
Leadership
thought.
Institute.
It's later this year.
Yeah, which is actually better because in the past it's conflicted with graduation and this year it doesn't. So, and if it were your preference, we could do the retreat in the afternoon in the PM.
I just mentioned that.
Yeah, I'd rather have the retreat sooner than later if we can get it done.
Always preferable.
So the 18th, the possibility would be to keep it half-day,
In the
SLI,
afternoon.
half-day, okay?
Okay, so Linda, today you need the retreat dates. Oh, she needs the retreat dates and she needs the vote for the
Yes.
3 candidates.
Correct,
And
yes.
so she needs that for the evening.
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. At this time, we need to move into closed session. I'm trying to find my closed session piece.
It should be in here.
Oh, here it is, I'm sorry. Okay, the Board of Trustees on March 22nd, beginning at 9:40, will convene in closed meeting in accordance with Texas Government Code Sections 551.074.
Ready? All right, we're ready
You
whenever
ready?
y'all are.
All right. Board of Trustees on March 22nd at 9:58. Beginning at 9:58, we'll convene an open meeting. Action will take place on the following items. Is there a motion to come before the board? Ms. Freeman?
Yeah, I move that we approve the administrative appointments as discussed in executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the administrative appointments as discussed in closed session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. We're adjourned. We're done.